Welcome back to the Tier1 Podcast. I am your host, Brent Tucker, owner of FRCC. We do coffee, cigars, and bourbon, and we do it better than anybody else. Go to frcc.shop and use promo code FRCC15 to get 15% off the world's best coffee, cigars, and bourbon.
And I'm Drew Tucker, Tier 1 operator at First Responders Coffee, Cigar, and Cask Company. Guys, join our Patreon. It's brought to you by Cobalt Kinetics. And we've got a fitness forum. We've got behind the scenes. We've got a gun forum. And there's a Cobalt Kinetics tech ready to answer all your gun questions there at the Patreon. Guys, what are you waiting for? Join the Patreon.
I'm also part owner in Human Performance, TRT. Start this year off right, getting the best shape of your life. And go to hp-trt.com to do that. Use the promo code Tier1 to get 20% off for all of your testosterone and peptide needs. Let's do it, Drew.
Or new special forces ready.
Welcome to the Tier 1 Podcast.
This is amazing, dude. Check this out, right?
And with us today, we have Peter Ostrovsky. He is a retired HSI special agent with 31 years of experience. And I can't wait to hear about those 31 years. I bet you got a few stories in there. Thanks for coming on, Pete.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yep.
In fact, you're a Patreon member as well. And that's one of the ways that we connected. And right off the bat, I want to say thank you for supporting us, very much. Coming all the way over here, being a guest on the show. That is a knife from Brotherhood Blades to commemorate your time here. It's got the Tier 1 logo laser engraved right on there, so you can't mistake it for any other knife you may have.
Beautiful.
Not that you could. Not that you could.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Right off the bat, people hear the term, special agent, this and that. Where does the term special agent come from?
Yeah, well, believe it or not, it actually comes from the U.S. Post Office Department in the mid-1800s, which you would think that it would be from some other agency that was maybe cooler than that. But so, yeah, it came from the post office, and basically it was a title that was given to their employees that would do investigations.
Okay.
And they would do interstate travel in their investigations. So it was different than a postal inspector back then who was like stationed in an actual physical building.
Okay. And then I believe Secret Service took it over from there, not too long after, and just kind of branched out from there.
Yeah. Later in the 1800s, the Secret Service used the title. In the 1920s, somewhere in there, when the FBI came to be, they named their investigator special agents as well. And it's a term that it's used throughout the U.S. federal government and our federal law enforcement agencies for agencies that have appointed special agents to conduct federal criminal investigations and who have to travel or conduct their work in an interstate manner, or nationally.
And when it comes to HSI special agent specifically, what does that mean?
Yeah, so an HSI special agent, HSI was essentially born out of 9/11. After 9/11, the special agents that were in the U.S. Customs Service, that's where I was originally prior to 9/11, we were moved into the new Department of Homeland Security along with INS special agents and then a small group of Border Patrol agents that were conducting human smuggling investigations on behalf of the Border Patrol. So they put all of us into the ICE Office of Investigations. That's in 2003.
Okay.
And then in 2010, the ICE Office of Investigations was renamed Homeland Security Investigations, and that's how we became HSI Special Agents.
Okay.
Yep.
How did you become an HSI Special Agent? Let's rewind it and get to the beginning of that story.
You know, I came from a family that had no law enforcement officers. You know, my father was not, and nor were there any uncles or siblings or that kind of thing. I really, you know, came from that Miami Vice era. Like you would hear many Navy SEALs say that, oh, Charlie Sheen and the movie Navy SEALs inspired me to become a Navy SEAL. Well, to me, it would be more the Miami Vice era. I was working as a Miami Beach lifeguard when I was going to college. And I started seeing all of these Marine law enforcement boats out patrolling around. You know, it was in the height of the drug war, the cocaine cowboys in South Florida. So all of that imagery and ideas kind of started, I would say, polluting my brain, you know, because a lot of it's fictionalized, right? When you see television and movies and whatnot. But I was like, all right, that's kind of cool. How do I get a job as a Marine law enforcement officer? So I kind of set my sights on that first because, you know, I worked on the water. I also had my own boat. I was a spear fisherman. So that was my like entry into law enforcement, was looking at that.
Yeah. Clearly you wanted a life on the water. I mean, it doesn't seem like a bad job.
No, not at all. And, you know, I grew up, I was an age group swimmer when I was a kid.
Okay.
So here I am working as a lifeguard on the water. And then it's like I see myself, or I have this vision for, you know, working on the water.
Yeah. What was the first thing you applied to then?
Well, I put in 2 applications. Being in Miami, I put in for what back then was called the Metro-Dade Police Department.
Okay.
So I applied for Metro-Dade. And then I also applied with the Florida Marine Patrol, which is currently called FWC, Fish and Wildlife. So I applied with those 2 agencies.
Given how I introduced you as a 31-year HSI special agent, I have a feeling they didn't work out.
No, not at all. Well, one of them didn't work out, and actually one of them I ended up turning down. Okay. So, I had applied with Metro-Dade Police because I figured like, okay, big police department, you know, they've got soup to nuts, you know, all kinds of things, SWAT, aviation unit, Marine unit, what have you, large department. So I'll apply, become a patrol officer in Metro-Dade, and I'll somehow eventually work my way to the boats because that's what was my love. But much to my surprise, during the hiring process, I ended up failing the polygraph. And I didn't fail it for dishonesty. I actually failed it for honesty.
So you failed it for being too honest. It is. There are times like in a polygraph, like they have the, you know, the big general consensus of what a profile is like. And of course you could be to the right of that in a bad sense and you'll throw off the polygraph. But that's actually true. And I've heard that before. People who are too honest, or their past is too clean of sorts, it also skews the interview to some degree. But is that the case?
Yeah. Well, what happened to me was they asked the question, have you ever used anabolic steroids before? And I said, yes, because when I was going to college, you know, my roommate was a bodybuilder, and I was racing in triathlons and doing all kinds of, you know, stuff. And I had used steroids for a while. So it just totally caught me by surprise. But when I answered yes, he literally shut the machine off and like put his pen down. And he goes, we're finished. And I was like, we're finished? And he's like, yeah, because that's an automatic, you're out of our pre-employment, you know, processing.
No way.
Yeah, because
one and done, huh?
One and done. Like, yeah, that was like the line, which was I was surprised. But what he ended up explaining was that because of the Miami River Cop scandal back there, the cocaine cowboys era, there was a group of City of Miami police officers that had been prosecuted for robbing drug dealers and whatnot. And those officers, some of them were on steroids. They were big, weightlifter looking type dudes. And so I guess there was no police department in South Florida that wanted that to happen ever again. So anybody that used steroids, you were out the door. Yeah.
That's so crazy. Yeah. I've always felt this way, and actually came across an article not too long ago that actually completely dispels the myth of roid rage.
Yeah.
Of course, when it comes to sometimes guys doing that, there's no lack of people not taking accountability for their bad actions. It's always, someone else's fault. But the reason behind that is basically these guys are always jerks, but they either never had the confidence or maybe they never thought they were big enough to do something about it. Yeah. So where roid rage really comes from is now they have all this confidence. They think they're stronger than they are. They think they're bigger. Maybe they're as big as they think they are or bigger than they are. They've always wanted to be this person, and now they feel like they can. And it has really nothing to do with the steroids. If you take a super nice guy and give him steroids, he's going to be a super nice guy.
Yeah.
So I've always hated that terminology and that kind of rationale of thinking, and that's crazy. So
yeah. I mean, on its face, back then, I mean, I did something unlawful. I didn't have a prescription, so
Yeah, it's cut and dry.
That's
at the end
there
of the
too.
day. Yeah. A case of being too honest, but at the end of the day, life has a strange way of working out. As you look back, I'm sure were you even upset at yourself at being that honest at the time when you look back, or at the time were you upset that you gave that answer, or you're like, man, that's the answer I give.
I tend to be honest, so yeah. I mean, it was just the answer I gave.
So you didn't regret it at the time?
No, not at all. I was just like, all right, dust yourself off, and where else are you going to apply?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love that mindset. And so where else did you apply?
So I applied for the Florida Marine Patrol because that was like the quintessential Marine law enforcement job. A state police officer working on the water in a fast boat by himself. When I'd see them from the lifeguard stand, I'd see them tearing ass here and there. And so it was like, wow, that's cool. So I applied there, and I went up to their assessment up at the State Police Academy in Tallahassee. Mm-hmm. And I thought I did pretty good because, I was basically a jock. I was racing triathlons, working on the beach. They had us like run and swim and do push-ups and pull-ups and sit-ups, and I pretty much like ranked second, like in all of that physical abilities type stuff. And then they had a panel interview, and I got some positive feeling from that. And at the time, I was also going to the University of Miami, and I was in this health and fitness management program. And so, the premise of that program was to develop people that could run like a fitness program in a corporation or like at a health club, et cetera. Okay. So it was part health and fitness, part business. And so that was what I was involved in. So to get back to what I was talking about, the Marine Patrol, they had like a surprise essay question.
Okay.
And the essay question was, why would it be beneficial for a law enforcement agency to have a health and fitness program? So it just kind of fell in my lap. Like I had just written a term paper for my degree on that. So, I aced that. So when I walked away from the Marine Patrol, I had a very good feeling that, okay, I'm a highly ranked candidate for, selection.
What year was that roughly?
1986.
I think it's crazy in such a short amount of time, like the culture shift. It wouldn't surprise me if there was a law enforcement agency out there whose essay question was, why does fitness not matter in today's time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that, when you were writing that essay at the University of Miami, was that after your cheerleading time? And you didn't think I was going to let you get away with not mentioning that you were a cheerleader?
Yes, some college cheerleaders have graced this chair, I guess. Your podcast.
You're the third one.
I'm the third one.
You're the third one.
Well, then we're finished. There's only 3 of us.
They come in threes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had 2 of them were Green Berets. One was at Florida State. The next one was at Oregon.
Yeah.
And now we have a 31-year special agent from it. It's clearly not a bad thing for a male to be a cheerleader, at least in our interaction so far with him. It hasn't hurt him at all.
No, not at all. I mean, it's 1982 in the fall, and you become a member of a fraternity that has a monopoly on cheerleading at the University of Miami, and you become a cheerleader because that's where all the cute girls are, and that's where all the action is.
And the girl you were throwing in the air was Vinny Testaverde's girlfriend. Was it not?
Vinny Testaverde's girlfriend was my cheerleading partner. She was kind of not as tall as me, but she was one of the taller girls.
Okay.
And sorry, Luann, for dropping you a couple of times, but it wasn't on purpose.
We all have risky jobs.
Yes.
Yeah, she signed up for it. She knew what she was signing up for.
Yeah.
All right, that had to squeeze that one in on you, Peter. So you ended up getting that job,
Florida Marine Patrol.
Yes.
No, I didn't.
You didn't.
No, well, what happened was at the same time I was I had taken the Treasury Agent Enforcement exam, which basically it's like a written exam that allows you to get a qualifying score to be considered by the Customs Service, the Secret Service, ATF, or IRS criminal investigations. So I had taken that exam. I barely passed it. You have to get a 70. I got a 71.5. And frankly, when I got my score back, I thought, like, I'm never going to hear from the feds.
Yeah.
Like, it's probably going to be the Marine Patrol. Because I was under the impression that, like with anything, you have to get like a 90 or higher, right? Or like almost a perfect score to make the list or to be on the list. So much to my surprise, 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. Actually, no. Much to my surprise, before the letter, I'm in the lifeguard stand working on Miami Beach. I got a call from our lieutenant over the radio to call this customs special agent during my afternoon break. Okay. And I called him back, and he's like, "Hey, you took this exam, and we're considering you for a position with Customs. We need to interview you." I was like, "Okay, when?" And he's like, "Well, tomorrow at 11 a.m. at our office." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm thinking to myself, "Okay, I'm calling in sick at the beach to go do this interview." And I went and did the interview, and much to my surprise, it was like, you got to think this is during the height of the drug war, so they're really ramping up. They're hiring a lot of people. But much to my surprise, the interview was just like boilerplate, national security type questions. Have you ever advocated for the overthrow of the government? And did you ever use cocaine, heroin, or marijuana? Like some very boilerplate things. There was no like
softball interview.
Yeah, total like templated interview, but there was no like, why do you want this job? What's your aptitude? What's your opinion on this or whatever? So I was kind of surprised, walked out of there, and 2 weeks after that, I got the letter saying, "You're hired."
All right.
Yeah.
Did the other agency reach out to you that you're also applying for that you felt like you nailed it?
Yeah. So before I reported to Customs, I got a call from the Marine Patrol saying, "Hey, we want to bring you back for a second interview." And I was like, "Oh, I just took a job with the Customs Service."
Okay.
Which paid like $4,000 more. So, I was going to stick with Customs at that point.
And we're talking 1980s money paid $4,000 more. So we're not talking like 96,000 versus 100,000. What are we talking?
No, we're talking like the difference between 14,000 and 17,000. So, real low level.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
But back then we were talking, you get a Cadillac for under 10 grand during this time as well.
Yeah.
But that $4,000 is huge. That's a big difference.
It's Miami Vice money.
Yeah. Makes that decision a little easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I was thinking that, okay, the Customs Service, they also have boats. I've seen them, like Blue Thunder, all these Go Fast boats that they have. Maybe I can work my way into that job by whatever they're hiring me for. But I didn't really know what I would be doing, with them.
You didn't know. Did you know what you signed up for, though, generally? You
I signed up as an investigator, but I did not know, like, investigating what.
Right.
Yeah.
You figured the boats was a specialty job. Like I said, that you'd have to, you'd make your way there eventually.
Right. Like a special assignment that you would get after you made your bones.
And so you didn't expect to be on a boat within 2 days?
No.
Basically immediately.
Yeah. Basically, the day I reported, jacket and tie, dress shoes. As I was being walked into the building, the supervisor asked me if I had any boat shoes. And I was like, yeah, of course I own boat shoes. He goes, okay, tomorrow dress down because you're going to be working on the boats. So I was just like, what? Like
ahead of schedule.
This is like the dream job. This is what I wanted,
Right.
And I'm doing this like right away. So, I really felt like I won the lottery.
Yeah. Everything works out. For older people listening to this will essentially hear this story and be like, yeah, that's how life works. But what's really important to some of the younger men listening to this, trying to figure out what they're going to do in life. You didn't sit back, wait for something to fall in your lap. You clearly were sending out your resume everywhere, even after a dead end. And then you ended up having options, and then you took the best option. And then, as life would have it, not only is the best option for you money wise, you get right on a boat.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and it was like I was ready to go with the flow, pun intended, right?
Right.
And I ended up on the boats. So
I love that. And again, if you walk it back, it almost sounds like a better scenario couldn't have worked out better for you. And it all comes back from being too honest in an interview and a dead end.
Yeah.
And it leads you down this path.
Yeah. Which often you get advice to the contrary. Not be so honest, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love that. But how about and for anyone, live your life in a way that you don't have to be dishonest.
I mean, you want to be able to sleep at night, not have those kinds of concerns.
But if you're going to do something, I don't think what you had to admit to it's pretty low on the level of things you have to admit to.
Right.
I'll accept that one.
Right. It didn't involve a lantern and a shovel somewhere, out in some open field. So it was.
Had the job on the boats start off for you?
I went to our academy, which is 16 weeks up in the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. It's in Southeast Georgia. Right outside of Brunswick, Georgia. I really, other than the academics, while I was there, I kind of cracked down and studied because, I didn't want to screw up my shot. But the fitness part was easy, and you learn to shoot. Back then, we were issued Smith & Wesson 686s, 3-inch, wheel gun, 357 Magnum. So that's what we learned our basic marksmanship with, and we had Remington 870 shotguns, so it was pretty basic.
Did you shoot before that?
Actually, great question. So a year before, and when I started putting in all my applications, and when I was 21, I bought a revolver.
Okay.
Smith & Wesson Model 13, and I used to go out to the East Everglades. And there was some roads out there where people would go shooting, and I kind of learned to shoot on my own.
Did you do that because you knew firearms was going to be in your future, or was that just something you wanted to do?
Well, that was the period of time when I was applying for all these agencies. So I basically wanted to be able to shoot.
Yeah, that was the answer I was hoping for.
Yeah,
because that's just another thing that is unnecessary, especially, and that was then when information was of sorts hard to come by,
right?
And you still figured it out, and now we're at an age where you have all this information at your fingertips, and young people show up completely unprepared when all that information was there. I just take, for example, some people that go to a special operations selection process and didn't know there was a 50-meter swim in uniform and boots to accomplish, and they can't do it. How did you not know that was a part of this? And so just being prepared for it was just kind of shows the type of person you are.
Yeah, and I mean, for everybody that applied, I mean, things were different back then. This is like before the internet. This is what I call the clipboard age, where anything that was important was printed on a piece of paper on a clipboard hanging on a wall somewhere. The other thing was, in order to like get an application for Florida Marine Patrol or Metro Dade Police, you literally had to go in and talk to somebody and shake a hand. This wasn't like filling out a drop-down form and hitting submit electronically. So, it was a different time. And snail mail, like your notification was coming in the U.S. mail.
I believe that would terrify some young people today. It's like, hey, you have to go in there and talk to someone, and before you ever meet anyone. It's just things have changed so much because of the internet. And I'm not here doing the old man thing. Oh, the internet's bad. It's just different. Yeah. It's not that long ago that things were wildly different. And that's really just the point of that. You forget how quick things have changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And FLETC is where you're at. What was the academics part the hardest part for you then? Because like I said, you were in shape, you're familiar with guns. Would it be the routine or the academics? What is it about FLETC that stood out to you? Here at the Tier 1 Podcast, we're excited to have Tasty Gains as a sponsor, a company with values that aligns with ours. I take their products every day, 3 times a day. And if it wasn't a product that I didn't take personally and believe in, and a company with integrity, then they wouldn't be sponsors on this show. Creatine helps the body produce more ATP, which is an energy molecule that your entire body runs on. It helps improve your physical and mental performance in all aspects of life. Let's be honest, creatine powder sucks to take every day. With the creatine gummies, you can take them with you anywhere and they taste great. Every batch is third-party tested, so you know you're getting exactly what you pay for. Go to tastygains.com and enter the promo code Tier1, that's TIER, the number 1, and get 20% off your order.
Well, for me, I mean, it was certainly the legal part, like the different legal courses that we had to learn, federal criminal law, federal criminal procedure, have an understanding of all that. So that was probably the most difficult because I had no prior exposure to that whatsoever. I would say that was the hardest part, and that's what I dedicated myself to, is to study that.
But you were motivated because you already knew you were going back to boats. So
yes, so like I had gotten the job that I wanted, so now I was like, don't F it up, don't screw this up,
Yeah. It's another thing that just with the people that talk about ADD a lot, and we talked earlier in the podcast about some people just don't take responsibility for things. I'm not saying that there's no such thing as ADD, but when you find someone with real ADD, like it's apparent. Sometimes people just don't want to apply themselves, and so they just use the cover of I have ADHD, I have this, I have that. Well, it's just not true. You're just uninterested in it, so you choose not to apply yourself. Because I'm pretty sure if I looked in your life, things that interested you, you had no problem throwing attention at that. So you just have to want it.
Yeah, you have to want it, and to kind of advance forward. And I think you'd probably agree with me that the more successful, like for me, the more successful special agents that have seen, in my career are people that are obsessed. Oh, there's a level of obsession, but it's a healthy obsession with professionalism. It's a healthy obsession with, they don't like to get beat. Actually, this is a great thing to talk about. It's a job for winners.
Right.
If you don't like winning and if you're not competitive, it's not a job for you.
Yeah.
So
I love that. I love that attitude. I love what you said. Everyone, we're on the Tier 1 podcast, and I've said this before. It's this. We're building a culture of Tier 1 people, not just Delta Force and SEAL Team 6. It's just not. Like I've said it before. We'd have 6 episodes and be done. We want Tier 1 employees, Tier 1 fathers, Tier 1 friends, Tier 1 in everything you do. And to be Tier 1, you have to be obsessed. We just had Dalton Fisher on the show. Had no prior experience of being a podcaster, and he's one of the biggest up-and-coming podcasters and on YouTube. And his first full year, has got 500,000 subscribers. Why? Because he was obsessed with it. He was obsessed with the process. And it doesn't matter what you do or who you are. You should. And I saw a YouTube comment that said they were talking about Tier 1. The difference between SEALs and Delta Force, and a comment just said, "Don't worry about what others are doing. Just concentrate on yourself, and that's how you'll be the best." I strongly disagree. I couldn't disagree any more to that comment. You should absolutely concentrate on yourself being the best. But how do you know you're the best? When you say you're the best at something, you're the best at something among what other people are doing. If you don't know what other people are doing, then how do you know what to strive for?
Yeah.
Find out what they're doing wrong, do it better. Find out what they're doing good, do it better. It's just that is the mentality you have to have, and regardless of what you do. I don't care if you're flipping burgers at McDonald's. Be the best person there.
Yeah, and then during the course of a career, whether you're in a Tier 1 military unit or you're a special agent, we work with others, we work with partners. That healthy obsession helps to raise the game. It's kind of like the rising tide floats all boats.
Absolutely.
Right? Another
Absolutely.
maritime pun. But it's that's the way it works. And like for the federal law enforcement agencies, with our special agents, we strive to have what's called the 2-agent rule. We work with a partner,
Okay.
right? We work with a partner. Why? Because we want somebody else to witness what we are seeing, right?
Right.
And it maintains the integrity of the investigative process and maintains the integrity of us when we have another witness as to what has occurred. And yeah, it's not a job for singletons.
And with that mindset, here's just the parting piece of advice to people about that. What's the downside to it? What's the downside of trying to be the absolute best at what you do? There's only an upside to it. You'll be the best at what you're doing right now, and if you continue in that profession, you will. Whether climbing the ranks is what you want to do, or just be that guy that people depend on. That's who that guy is. The guy who's obsessed.
Yeah,
healthy, obsessed with his job.
Yeah, and and the other thing is, it is to me, and it is a unique opportunity to have been a special agent. So you want to get the most out of that career and experience as most as you can, because you only get one shot at it.
That's right.
You get hired, and we do have early retirement because we have mandatory retirement at age 57.
Okay.
But you don't get to do it again.
Right.
And you don't get to be a young man again.
That's right.
So when you're a young man or a young woman, it's time to work. And what I've seen in my career is that, once you have a family, you have children, you'll see a little bit of taper on special agents, but it doesn't mean that you're no longer useful for us, but you may not be the sharp tip of the spear. You may be the guy holding the spear.
Well, and there's a big difference between if you didn't apply yourself in the absolute most way that you could, if you taper off from here, well, you never really went far and can't afford to taper off.
Right.
But if you have that mentality, you end up going so much further. And even if you start to taper off, you're still better than everyone around you.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you get back to to, I want to say your unit or your department? Had that initial phase of doing the job go for you? Was it what you wanted?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I came back. I knew I was going back to the boats. Came back, and then I found out like, oh, and you're on the midnight shift. Great. I'm still the lottery winner. You know, I'll take whatever.
Bad guys work at night.
Whatever I get. Yeah. Most of the smuggling happens at night, you know, especially that involving go fast boats. Because back then in the 80s, the drug smuggling via vessel was either go fast boats coming in from the Bahamas in the dead of night, or it'd be like a pleasure boat or some other recreational boat that had a hidden compartment in it.
Right.
And those boats can kind of come in during the day and blend in with the traffic, you know, legitimate traffic. So yeah, working the midnight shift was a good thing. That's where all the smuggling's happening.
When you say go fast boats, we want 4 outboards. How fast are they going?
Yeah, back then, I mean, you know, people think that, these boats were like super fast. They could do 100. No, that's not true. You know, like our boat, our patrol boats were Chris Craft Stingers that were 39 footers with twin inboard outboard engines. We had the 36-foot USA Catamaran, also inboard outboards. Those boats would probably do 40, 45 at the most, you know. Some of the bad guy boats, back then, the Midnight Express was very popular. Used to be made in Opelika, Florida, but now it's made somewhere else. But those boats were like 37 feet long, open center consoles, 4 outboard engines. Maybe those boats would do about 70. Very heavy, big fuel tanks for an extended range, and they could carry, bulky bales of marijuana or baled kilograms of cocaine. Yeah.
How long did it take you working at night before you got to get into it?
2 weeks.
Did it even? It's funny looking back. 2 weeks in. I mean, that was right off the bat. But when you're in it, you know, day in, day out, 2 weeks can feel like a long time. Did it feel boring up until then, or was it's still fresh on the job?
No,
You're doing
new
things every day.
Every day going out on the boats, you know, was like an adventure. You know, we're going out hunting for smugglers. Yeah. So it was exciting, especially for me, you know, because that's what I wanted to do. So yeah, 2 weeks in 2 weeks out of the academy, we get involved in this boat chase of these smugglers that tried to come in through Haulover Inlet. For people that are in South Florida, it's the north end of Miami Beach. And they tried to come in to offload this like ginormous load of marijuana between the two boats. It ended up being like 12,000 pounds of marijuana.
Oh, wow.
And one of the boats started throwing its bales overboard when it was chased by a local police marine unit. And we got a call. We had actually been in Biscayne Bay patrolling that night. We got a call from our Blue Lightning Operations Center that this local police officer was chasing a boat up at Haulover, which is about 15 miles north of downtown. So we hauled ass up there, quickly met with a police officer, got the thumbnail sketch in the boat. He's like, hey, it's a white and blue Midnight Express with 4 outboards and 2 white males on board. And I tried to chase him out the inlet, but he outran me. And so we're like, okay, we're good. And we head out the inlet. And our Blue Lightning Operations Center used to have these condominium top radars, like surface radar to pick up surface targets on the water on these condominium buildings that were near the different inlets. So actually the operations center had them as a radar target. He was about 10 miles offshore already, the smugglers. So we just blindly went into the night in pursuit of that radar target. You know, it was about 2:30 in the morning. And so yeah, we were, intent on trying to catch these guys no matter what.
So radar has contact of them, and you're moving to essentially and you don't have the same radar, so they're essentially walking you on to target.
Yeah, they're just telling us, hey, that target's going 090, basically towards the Bimini Islands. There's North Bimini and South Bimini, about 47 miles from Miami, nautical miles. So yeah, we're also steering the same course, hoping to to catch up to them.
Do you guys have anything, or are your boats outfitted any differently? Maybe extra fuel capacity because you'll be going longer, or are they essentially just commercial off the shelf as you get them?
That boat, I think it was like a commercial off the shelf boat. But I think so. I don't think it had like additional fuel. For example, that Midnight Express boat has up to 700 gallons of fuel below its deck.
Yeah. Well, it's going to need it with all those engines.
In multiple tanks, exactly. So we basically knew that if we chased the radar target, I didn't know shit. I was the new guy. So, the guys that I was working with knew the following is that they may run out of fuel and be dead in the water, because wherever they've come from in the Bahamas, they may have used most of their fuel and only have a little bit in reserve.
Okay.
Or they're going to have some kind of mechanical malfunction with one of their outboards and they're going to break down, again, be dead in the water. Or they're going to stop somewhere in the darkness, throw all the bales of marijuana in the ocean, and then they're going to run somewhere else and wash down their boat, meaning that like they'll take a nylon brush that's on board and they have like these hoses that are connected to the sea that can pump water into it.
Okay.
It'd be like your hose in the yard at your house.
Right.
And they'll try to like wash all the marijuana debris out of the boat, because the boats have what's called a through-hole scupper, that where like the back corner of the boat, you can push things out.
Right. It's one-way valve.
It's like a one-way valve. Exactly. So we knew that. So we were like, all right, let's just pursue the target and see what happens,
Did they tell you what was the boat still at the time? Were you moving towards a stationary target, or
no?
were you trying to intercept
it? Was still moving, and actually, it fell off of radar probably about 10 miles out.
Okay.
So we were just blindly going eastward because we figured, we may all of a sudden see marijuana bales in the water, or we may just find them, broken down or out of fuel, and be able to take them into custody. The other thing is, in the Customs Service, and the same thing applies for the Coast Guard. I mean, we could seize their boat. Even if they had dumped the load and we found them and they were empty, we could seize their boat for running without their navigation lights being on, or from running from a law enforcement officer. So either way, we could have a win that day.
That surprises me and almost upsets me in the same within the same token, because you're telling me in maritime law, just not paying attention, not intentionally doing illegal things, and running around at night with your lights off would be a good indicator that at the agent's discretion, they could they could take your boat. And of course, same thing with evading law enforcement. They could take your boat.
Yeah.
We don't do the same thing on the streets. Do the same thing on the streets.
Yeah, great point.
If you're, I don't know, you see these videos, and I could be wrong. There may be, a cop here that's like, actually, if they run from us, we can impound their car. I've never seen it. I know for a fact, if you're doing something shady and just driving around slow in a neighborhood with your lights off, and it's clear you're doing something wrong, but a law enforcement officer just can't pin it. Maybe at least impounding the car would aid in at least slowing that person down with his bad intentions. And I get it. Some people are not going to like what I just said because they have a preconceived notion that all cops are bad. I just don't believe that, and I would like to assume that our law enforcement is good until proven otherwise, and at least give them the ability to make those decisions on the ground or on the water.
Yeah, and I think it's just part of whatever your legislature, or in our case, Congress, is willing to authorize us to do, right? Yeah. And I think it evolves, right? Like we were in the drug war back then, and we needed additional tools to be able to have some kind of impact on these smugglers, especially when the smugglers are, based. They could be based like outside of the country,
right?
So by seizing a boat but maybe you just seize the boat and not the load of drugs. Really hampers their ability to continue their operations. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not exactly the death blow to them. They got plenty of money. They can replace it. But you take enough boats, you're going. That's one less. That boat was carrying, or at least one or two was carrying 12,000 pounds of drugs. You start taking 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a dozen boats off the water. You take away their ability to deliver it, or at least for a little bit. And now you're financially hampering them. Like the domino effect of that, it can be huge.
Yeah. Well, we know what the effect is now, right? Because after 9/11, global war on terrorism, designated terrorists on boats. We all know what that looks like.
Yeah.
We didn't have that back then. So we had our authorities.
Heck, at least put, especially with those strikes on drug boats that I believe you're talking about.
Yeah.
At least put the fear in them that something bad may happen. At least make them work like hunted men. There's so many bad guys that are just running around doing whatever they want, believing nothing will happen to them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately being right.
Yeah.
Like we can't have them running around this audacious. They better be scared of the law.
Yeah. You have to challenge them.
Yeah.
In some way. If you don't challenge smugglers, they're just going to take the path of least resistance.
Right.
They will commit the crime, like, to use the saying, in front of the police station. So you basically have to make it hard on them, and you have to make them invest more of their time, their money, their human capital. You just can't, let them have it easy.
So on this boat that goes 10 miles offshore, kind of gets out of radar, I'm assuming you see the speed and the vector they're on, and you just kind of put yourself still on a blind course, but on a blind course that you believe would intersect that.
Yeah.
That's essentially how that happens.
Yeah. And so during this pursuit, well, we don't even have them in sight, right?
Okay.
But eventually, as it starts becoming light, it's like 4 a.m, a first light, a Coast Guard helicopter overflies us from west to east, headed towards Bimini. So we're thinking, oh, they're out looking for this smuggler as well. And at that point, we stopped our boat and we shut off our engines because we wanted to see if we could hear the other boat running, because it was low wind, pretty calm out, pretty flat calm, so you could probably hear them. And as we're standing there on our boat and we're kind of talking amongst ourselves, we're like, all right, should we continue to Bimini? Should we maybe turn around and go back? And we kind of decided that we were going to turn around and go back because one of our guys was like going to go on annual leave the next day. And he wanted to basically catch his flight, after work. And so we're standing around, and we're like, okay, let's go back. Because maybe on the way back, we'll see the debris field of marijuana bales or bales in the water, and we'll make a seizure and kind of be, partial heroes, for the day.
Hey, if you don't go scoop them up, they will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody else will come back and get them. So we make that decision. We're getting ready to turn around and head back to Miami. And we look south, and about a mile away, there's the smugglers. They're dead in the water. and
they've been there the whole time.
They've been there the whole time as we're like basically shooting the shit, trying to figure out what we're going to do. And it's getting lighter and lighter and lighter. Right. And now it's light enough that we see that, oh shit, they're right there.
It's like the lights come on, you find out you're all in the same room.
Yeah, exactly. Like a fraternity hazing thing or whatever, and or indoctrination.
Yes, indoctrination, if you will.
Yeah, so we see them, we steer towards them and start heading towards them, and they obviously see us too,
Right.
And they must have hit it because then they took off and they're headed towards Bimini, and so we start chasing them now visually,
right,
instead of blindly.
Yeah.
And they're about, I don't know, say a mile ahead of us. And we see that the Coast Guard helicopter actually came back and must have seen that. Oh, they probably, more light, they saw him too.
Right.
And they come back.
Yeah. How far can you see a boat on a clear day, calm seas? What do you think the visual is of seeing it? Because obviously they're going to go faster than you. So they start off at a mile. You can still see them. You want to take a bad guess of how far off you can visually. I don't even say recognize a boat but visually see a boat.
Well, it depends on the size and the height. Right?
This particular boat, these go fast boats. Couple miles out?
You could probably see them at like 2 miles,
okay.
I would say. Yeah. Because I think, and somebody's going to blow us up on the comments, I'm sure, but...
they will anyway.
So
it doesn't matter.
If you're standing on the water and you're 6 feet tall, the farthest you can see on the water, I think, is 6 miles. Okay. Maybe I was told that once. All maybe right. Not.
Yeah, that's going to hurt some flat earthers' idea. I think it has to do with the curvature of the earth as well, but that's also going to hurt people's feelings.
Yeah, I can tell you that, that's going to hurt somebody's feelings because I've seen cargo ships and their masts come up over the horizon and get taller, and I don't think they were submarines. They were actually floating on the water.
So they're heading to Bimini.
Yeah. They're heading to Bimini.
And so are you now.
We're heading to Bimini. Coast Guard helicopters doing low altitude harassment of that boat, coming in left and right over top of them. And as we're approaching Bimini, so at the same time as this pursuit, and we have had this operation with our Bahamian counterparts, where we're actually have guys stationed in the Bimini Islands running our boats with a Bahamian rider from the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, which gave us authority to do drug interdiction patrols in their waters. Okay. So we don't know if our operation that's based in the Biminis even knows that we're doing this pursuit because we were working off a handheld radio the whole time. Mm-hmm. Our company radio was down, and now we're so far offshore we can't even hit our repeater back on land to reach them or even communicate with them. But as we approach Bimini, we see one of our boats that's stationed over there coming down from the north, headed in the direction of the pursuit. And we see them cut through this, what's called Suicide Cut, which is a hole in the sandbar as you approach Bimini Harbor. And they essentially put themselves in front of the pursuit. And we're like, all right, great. We're chasing
the boys are here.
The boys are here. We're chasing them. We're actually legally able to do this because that's our Bahamas op. Yeah. Because we're in a foreign country at this point.
Right.
And so all is good. So we continue to chase them. And as we're approaching the harbor, still at speed, we see this white, like 25-foot Mako center console boat with 2 Bahamian guys come out, and he tries to get in front of our other boat, which is one of these 36-foot USA catamarans. And they end up basically colliding with them and like running them over. And it was like, the collision did not stop the pursuit. The bad guys that we were chasing, the smugglers, just continued going, and we went around the collision. And the last thing I saw when we went around the collision was our other boat was on top of this center console, and I could see both of its propellers out of the water, spinning out of the water. So he was completely up on top of them.
Yeah. So it's like they had they probably called ahead to this other Bahamian teammate, if you will, to run interference, probably on you guys. But now another boat shows up, and they're going to slow someone down.
Correct. And that is a fact, because subsequently, after we seized this smuggler's boat, they had a HF radio, and that's how they would communicate, over the horizon with.
And they miscalculated the government's resources. That our boats will just run you over. We can buy another one. You may not be able to.
Yeah, pretty much so. Yeah. So the smugglers that we were chasing just gave up there in the harbor, because I guess they thought like, okay, we're safe. We're back in the Bahamas. Right. They can't do anything to us. But they were wrong. We came alongside, and one of my partners and I went on board and took both of the smugglers into custody. And there was nothing on the boat. They had successfully ditched the load.
Okay.
And they had been clearly washing down the boat because we found the big nylon brush on the on the handle, and their raw water wash down system. The pump was going, actually pumping water onto the deck. So we caught them. Well, when we saw them, they were washing down the boat.
Yeah.
So the bales were somewhere out in the ocean.
But as you've already mentioned, I love the rules that you guys were able to work within, because usually most people think, well, you didn't catch me red-handed, so sorry, we get away again. Not so fast.
Yeah.
If they were they were evading law enforcement. I'm assuming they were running around at night without lights.
Yep.
Obviously, because you'd have known you'd have known they were closer to you
Right,
when the sun
lights
came
on.
up.
Yeah.
So no, you're coming with us and your boat's mine.
Yeah, and basically what happened was our other boat came over to us, and we saw that they didn't have one of our foreign national partners on board. And actually my boss was on that boat. His name's Joe Goulet, and he's actually a former Green Beret.
Oh, really?
Yeah, late Vietnam era Green Beret.
Awesome.
And he's like, all right, we need to go down to Cat Key, which is where we were based out of. He's like, you guys need to refuel and get the fuck out of here. And
we've missed some steps, so
yeah.
we gotta roll.
So that's what we did. We went down and refueled, and we basically brought the smugglers back to the customs house, which is at the mouth. Back then, it was at the mouth of the Miami River. And as we pull up to the dock, it's just completely covered in marijuana bales, because what happened was the day shift had gone out. Other law enforcement agencies had gone out, state and local Marine units, Coast Guard, and they had found the floating, the bales in the water. What they also found, which was kind of cool, was that the second boat that was trying to run a load, they found it just abandoned offshore off the beach, completely loaded. And apparently that whoever was operating that boat just jumped overboard and probably swam ashore and left that boat floating. So
he's got a bill or some questions to answer for doing that. I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Peter, real quick, if I may interject, there is something that the Coast Guard helicopter did with the drug dealing boat.
And, It was,
hand and arm signals. And there's some hand and arm signals going.
And tell us a little bit about that one. I like that.
I think it was part of their redundant communication system when you lose comms.
Yeah.
But we come to find out that one of the smugglers is like trying to play it off like I didn't do anything, and why was that Coast Guard helicopter swooping down on us and they were giving us the finger, and it was just like, which
in their defense, I believe, is the international sign language to stop.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that it was that was a fun day for you.
Yeah,
wasn't it? 2 weeks into the job, that's a fun day.
And it kind of drove home a couple points to me that, it's like that whole thing about being a winner, not quitting.
Right.
And using everything that you have to get the job done. It's like, we got a boat that's our boat is full of fuel, and we'll run our boat until we can't run it anymore. The other thing was it kind of set the tone, I think, for my career, which is like pedal to the metal, just go for it.
Yeah.
Experience as much as you can.
You have to put yourself in position to win. There's so many people that would see it go off the radar, like, that boat's faster than us. We have no visual. It's at night. We're not going to catch them.
Yeah.
Let's go somewhere else. Like you'd have never found them.
Yeah.
Like you have to put yourself in position to win.
Yeah, and you have to really listen to your coworkers that have more experience than you, that say, hey, I've seen this before. I've been to this rodeo before. This is what can happen. So we're going to take our chances.
I love it. Did your coworker make his flight? Because it sounds like he may have missed it going all the way to Bimini and back. But do you remember if he made his flight or not?
I don't remember if he did or not. Yeah.
Irrelevant to this story.
Yeah. It wasn't.
I bet he remembers. He remembers if he caught that flight or not.
Yeah.
That story is also relevant to me, because one of my first missions that I went on was a great mission. And then but it also kind of ruins you a little bit because you think this is what it's like. And I didn't get to see another mission like that for a little bit. And so do you have the kind of the same effect? Hey, I'm 2 weeks in. This is what we do. We chase down the bad guys. We win. And we'll go to another country to do it if we have to.
Right.
Only to find out maybe you lucked out a little bit early on in the job.
Yeah, it kind of ruins you in a way. And certainly for me, like I after that, I mean, I was a guy working on the boats. I actually became, our title was vessel commander. I got trained. I went to the Marine Law Enforcement Training Program. I could run the boats myself and did a lot of patrolling, both in South Florida, in the Bahamas, because I was assigned to our Bahamas operation, and the results were very poor. It just seemed that, I use the term, I was underway too much, meaning underway in a boat.
Right.
I just did too much. And it didn't really the results didn't materialize for me. And, and I think we were actually at a time for the Miami office, the results were kind of tanking, but I think it's partially because the bad guys figured out that don't go through Bimini
right
straight to Miami because that's where they have personnel stationed.
Right.
And so our...
puts them back to the path of least resistance.
Right. So we basically, we denied them that easy path. And what we found out, over time, that they were still running. They were running into the Upper Keys, like south of Miami. But then they were also running, picking up their loads farther in the southeast Bahamas, closer to Cuba, Jamaica, the DR, and running all the way from down there into the Florida Keys. So, that was a longer run for them. So, we made it harder for them.
Right.
But it was more difficult for us to realize those enforcement results that everybody wants, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I love that, even though it sounds like, hey, they still figured out a way around it, but it's absolutely a win. If they're picking a longer route, that's less round trips that they can take per year. That's more expensive on them to operate that. Like there is tangible results to doing that.
Yeah. And as a 22-year-old, it was frustrating that I wasn't seeing that kind of action. And yet our Keys offices were seeing a lot of action because, they figured out that, we don't have to go out into the ocean to get them. We just got to work them from shoreside. Yeah. So there's this whole area in North Key Largo that's, mangroves and dirt roads that go down to the waterfront. And so our Key Largo office had some great cases and a lot of success.
Did you stay with Miami the whole time?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was in the Miami office for 10 years. My time on the boats was just a little over 2 years. Okay. Because what happened was the Customs Service had hired us under this criminal investigator job series, and they realized that, we can hire these guys under be like a MOS, right? Okay. Like this MOS that's more of like a enforcement patrol to run the boats, be on the boats. So they actually took all of us from that era off the boats and put us into like investigative groups to be like a special agent doing cases, criminal cases.
And were you off the boats though? So you're basically managing cases now and having other people do it, or you're just, so was it all shore base from this point on for you?
Well, yeah, it just depends on where you're assigned. So we have all different kinds of investigative groups that investigate different kinds of smuggling, whether it's maritime smuggling, aviation smuggling. I was assigned, there's money laundering, financial crimes, child exploitation, commercial fraud, all kinds of different things that the Customs Service did. I was assigned to this illegal exports group, which investigated illegal exports of U.S. munitions items and controlled commodities, generally like high-tech computers, dual-use stuff. For example, dual use would be like centrifuges that the Iranians are trying to use to enrich uranium, that kind of thing. So I was assigned to the exports group.
So you went from stopping things from coming in to stopping things from certain things from going out.
Absolutely. And with a different high, I'll just use this term, higher purpose, because basically exports is to, reinforce our national security and foreign policy objectives. We don't want certain military hardware to go to certain countries,
Right.
or to fall in the hands of our enemies. So, where my other purpose was like the smuggling of drugs, the safety of Americans, fellow Americans. Here now I'm working in a program which is all about these high level, positions of the U.S. government and related to those higher objectives.
It'll be a two-part question. On the export side, how long did you work that position?
I pretty much worked that for 5 years.
5 years. Okay.
But part of that 5 years, I went over to the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force. I worked over there.
Can you give me a couple cases from that stint in exports that's kind of near and dear to you, that you look back like those were, I did that, like something I did mattered?
I don't want to pump myself up too much saying that it mattered, but it was interesting.
Okay.
And it was fun. So, for example, I was working with a European criminal intelligence service that started telling us about this group of Miamians that was exporting arms and ammunition to the country of Suriname, which is in the top of South America, next to Guyana. And they were providing weapons and military training to these rebels that were trying to take over the Surinamese government. So again, it's a more like higher level type thing. And so I worked an investigation where one of those, I don't know if I would call him a mercenary, but it's probably a commonly used term for somebody like that. But he got caught with a private plane that was loaded with ammunition that he was trying to fly down to Suriname, and he got caught in Aruba. So, I got to go down to Aruba and liaise with our counterparts down there and gather evidence, get evidence reports, and we prosecuted him in the United States for illegal export of the ammunition. Okay. He also had 2 firearms that were taped up underneath the control panel in the airplane. So we got him for that. But the interesting thing was that, again, this is like the late 80s. We didn't have digital cameras back then. So on the plane was these stacks of photographs that he had apparently taken while he was in Suriname. And it was pictures of him and the rebels and the other co-conspirators, with different rifles and doing military training. He had like stacks of these photos on the plane that I guess he was just bringing back to the Surinamese rebels to give them like a set of the photos for themselves. But it was interesting. We were able to match up all of the different calibers of the ammunition on the plane to the calibers of the weapons that were in those photographs. Yeah. So this is kind of interesting, Yeah. Again, there's always some kind of international intrigue in those kinds of cases. For sure.
Yeah. It's so far 7 years in your career, it hasn't been the worst to work out of Miami, South Florida, the Caribbean, Aruba. There's a worse job than that. That's for sure.
No, I'm blessed. I mean, I got to do a lot of cool stuff. Our special response team was like a collateral duty team, no full timers. So I got to try out for that. Beyond that, we're talking the old days of like, balaclavas and Oakley goggles, so,
right. Yeah.
Back in the day where, there was like one MP5 on the team and shotguns and pistols, and that was it. So, I got to experience that, which was, I look back, and think I'm just like, I get goosebumps thinking like, holy shit, we were not very well equipped.
Hey, as long as you don't know it at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what's important.
Yeah.
What type of mission set would the SRT have?
It was warrant service, basically high risk search warrants, high risk arrest warrants. Back then it was like 100% dynamic. Break down the front door and go in.
And on land, maritime, both in the United States, Oconus, where would those warrants be carried out?
Well, our area of responsibility is South Florida. So
Okay.
yeah, just in and around South Florida. It's a typical SWAT thing. You get up at 3 a.m. and show up, and as soon as it's light, break the door down. But things are different now, obviously.
Lucky you for getting at it. You think that sometimes, like I did these jobs when it was kind of the heyday, the most fun to do these jobs, because you at least had as much as technologies as you could have before it turned, we'll call it, weaker.
Yeah.
And it was a war against drugs, so they were very motivated to do the job. Kind of seems like you hit that job right in the right time frame.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's old school is cool. So yeah. I think people like to hear stories about like the way we used to do things, and I'm a big believer that the most important ability for a special agent across all the agencies, the thing that you have to be good at is communicating with the public, communicating with the bad guys, the defendants, the attorneys, with your partners, communicating with people in other agencies. And then comes the investigative techniques and the tradecraft and all the stuff that we do, So.
I would agree with that. That is, and that's an art. Like it really is from an individual to a collective. Communication is something you have. Some people are naturally good on it, but just like sports, some people are naturally good at it. Some people have to work at it more than others. But it is a learned skill, and you can get better at it, and you have to.
Yeah, no doubt.
Would you'd end up doing some work against pedophiles, and ended up doing those cases while you're HSI as well?
Yeah, I when I was a customs agent, I worked in child exploitation for about 6 months. That's hard work. To see that, and especially when you meet some of the potential victims. I was involved in an investigation in Fort Lauderdale that there was somebody that was working at like a big box store that was trying to groom young boys, and you talked, and it's like a family, with a one parent family, and there's so much vulnerability there, and then you get these monsters that are just trying to take advantage of a situation that's probably not the best for that family,
Yeah, there's something I do with work with the Sentinel Foundation as well. It's just something I don't talk a lot about, but I do like talking about it at times, because it is something that I usually don't put a whole lot towards awareness, because usually I'm like, what's awareness? Like it doesn't do much. Like, who cares about awareness? Go out there and do something about it. But when it comes to crimes against children, awareness actually is something I'm a big advocate for. So I don't think they, especially people with kids, realize how rampant it is, how easy it is to manipulate a child, and it's something you have to be aware of. That way, as a parent, you can safeguard against that. And without being aware of it, you may not take the necessary steps. Because I can't think of anything worse or more evil than a pedophile. In fact, I might have to, and it's going to irritate me so much, I might have to edit out that word, because YouTube may not like me to say that word. Mm-hmm. How crazy is that?
Yeah,
really, it gets me upset even talking about it.
Yeah, and they're monsters.
They're worse than terrorists. They're worse than drug dealers. They are the lowest of the low, and unfortunately, the people who work those cases, I feel like, take the biggest risk, if you will, to their own health and mental health. Mm-hmm. You're a special person to watch, to investigate those things, to watch those videos, for them to be exposed as that as well, and carry on a normal life. It's something that to be honest with you, that I've struggled with as well. Like you can't unsee certain things.
No, you can't forget. It may not be at the forefront of your mind, but those kind of traumatic images and traumatic experiences, you just won't forget it.
Yeah, and we work with HSI a lot overseas, and we always have really good working relationships with HSI wherever we go, whether it be Thailand, Colombia, Peru, all the places and places in Africa. We always work with HSI, and they've always been impressive people, actually. And in fact, I wish they would put more manpower towards it, because usually when we show up, they're more than, if you have a good reputation in the space, they're more than welcome. They're more than welcoming. Like they're like, please, we have plenty of work to go around, and we need help. And so it's always been a great relationship working with HSI in that capacity. And I love that HSI cares enough to do something about that.
Yeah, yeah, and we've the whole child exploitation, international child sex tourism is like a big thing that we're heavily involved in overseas. Obviously this is all evolved with technology as well. So back then, a child porn case was a videotape and a printed magazine that was from like some other country. And then, once the internet was in use by people, then, the violators were using like these internet bulletin boards. And then once, it's just evolved into this, it is one of many cybercrimes.
Yeah. And for the law enforcement side, they just like, I talk about this. It really doesn't matter what your network is of sorts. So there will be unique differences in each network, but it doesn't matter if you're smuggling weapons, if you're smuggling drugs, if you're smuggling children. These networks and these people they're all very similar setup. And if you're good at breaking down one network, you can hop to different networks and be effective. You just have to find the nuances in it. But the problem is with the crimes against children, it's very internet and social and data based. And it's almost like they can move faster sometimes than law. They're harder to catch. They can move faster than law enforcement can change and adapt with them. It seems to be one of the struggles with that particular.
They can spoof where they are. It's kind of hard to pin down where they actually are.
Yeah.
The servers may be overseas, not in the United States. We've seen that a lot in the drug world, where some of the communication servers are not even in the U.S. They're back in the day, what I'd say in the early 2000s, they were using like BlackBerry pin-to-pin communication, but yet the server was like a private server. It wasn't even in the United States.
Yeah.
So you have like, let's say Canadian bad guys on the pin-to-pin communicating with Mexicans. They're in the U.S., but yet the device that's connecting them is like offshore.
Yeah. I hate it because I love technology so much. It's brought so much advancements, to our work, to our life, and in every facet of our life. But like anything else, and bad guys will find a way to use it for their benefit as well, and it makes it very difficult. On your 31-year career, do you have something that you look back at and you're like, that was my favorite? And in fact, I'll ask you in two parts. One as a job, and then maybe one as a case.
Well, I have two things that I did that I thought were unique, that only a small group of us did. One in particular was an operation when I transferred to the Pacific Northwest and I was working in the Canadian border. We did what was called Operation Frozen Timber. It was an operation it was an investigative operation targeting Canadian poly-drug organizations. Both they're trafficking and smuggling all kinds of drugs across the U.S.-Canada border. But what made some of these groups unique was that they were using helicopters. So we had worked, once I had transferred to the Pacific Northwest in 1997, we had worked like one standalone helicopter smuggling via helicopter case up there, and we kind of learned, okay, this is how they do it. This is where they operate. But then that was like in 1999, and we actually were assisting one of our Canadian partner agencies to do that case. They had the lead because they had all the info, and they knew that somebody was using a helicopter to smuggle. Back then it was Canadian grown marijuana, high potency indoor grown marijuana. So we assisted them, but we learned a lot about, okay, this is how these guys do this, which in general, that is an important component of investigating smugglers. It's not just catching them with their contraband, catching them in the act, but it's learning how they do it. Because at times what they're doing is they're exploiting border geography, they're exploiting infrastructure, like at the ports of entry or the seaport. There may be like an X-ray machine or some kind of detection thing that they've figured out how to evade.
Right.
So that's a big part of all of our investigations, is besides getting these smugglers and prosecuting them, is learning how they did it so that we can fill those gaps,
right?
Plug those holes. So
because if they're using that method, someone else is using that method too.
Right. So, 1999, we worked that one case. 9/11 happens. It was interesting. After 9/11, the FBI and DHS came out with a report that said helicopters is the next thing, because if the 9/11 hijackers could learn how to fly a jet in a simulator, commercial jet, they thought that helicopters would potentially be the next big thing. Much to our surprise, the bad guys probably didn't read that report, but they figured it out on their own. And there was a lot of smuggling via helicopter in 2005, 2006 in the area that I was working in. And what we realized was it wasn't good, because the aircraft were launching from Canada and coming to the United States, either loaded or coming to pick up. So they would come down loaded, like with loads of Canadian marijuana, high value. Back then it would draw like $3,000 a pound in Los Angeles. So it was like high value contraband. And then what a well-functioning criminal organization would do was sell that marijuana in the United States. They would take the proceeds and buy a coke load from a Mexican organization in the United States. And then they would smuggle the coke load to Canada. Because in reality, they're really a coke trafficking organization. They were just using marijuana as a low-risk means to generate capital.
Yeah.
And so that's what we were seeing. And so being that most of the helicopters were stationed or launching out of Canada, we really didn't know when they were coming. But we figured out how to work their ground crews, their offload crews. Okay. And that involved a lot of surveillance of vehicles. And, we would enhance and augment our surveillance by having surveillance aircraft from CBP working for us. And so we were able to identify in this one area in north central Washington State, area of the National Forest, over a period of time, about 14 different locations that they were landing at and offloading the drugs. But it took a lot of work.
Yeah, I never really thought about helicopters, and the problem set that they can be, because they can essentially land anywhere. Correct. It's much easier to get them to land somewhere, offload, and keep going, and they can legally land, certain places, and it's not a problem. Yeah. So tracking them where they're going, it's not like a jet has to start an airport, it has to end at an airport.
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's moving really fast. Yeah. If you want to push something out of a jet, sure. It'll be risky. That's not what they want to do. Right. But you can just go to a low hover, slow, get it off, and keep on going. And it becomes difficult to recognize.
Correct. Yeah. And it was shocking how easy it was for them. They could land and offload in about 40 seconds and be gone.
Yeah.
The longest we timed them doing an offload was like a minute and 50 seconds. So it was all happening very quick. Gave you very, very brief window to do any kind of interdiction or apprehension as they're doing the activity.
Yeah.
You know, they were using like the Robinson R-22, R-44 helicopters. They were using Eurocopters, Jet Rangers. What we found out was that they could lease a Jet Ranger for $10,000 a month and pay, I think it was $150 a flight hour to do this kind of smuggling activity. 3 pounds of marijuana was worth $9,000.
Yeah.
So, it was very low cost for them.
Yeah.
And all they had to do was really, like you said, land or hover somewhere. They would typically do it in the national forest somewhere in a bend of the road. And they would meet a vehicle or 2 vehicles and offload, and away they went. So,
yeah, they can do, just thinking about it now from a tactical standpoint as well. And you can do a lot of false insertions as well. Even though that's not where you're unloading it,
right.
move again, hover for 30 seconds, randomly move again, and you wouldn't know which one they're actually using. I think what I'm most impressed about is, and you may not know the story because when you get on the case, it's already this far along into it. It's amazing how we even find out at all that they're doing this, because you could just get that helicopter, and I don't know if it's dumb luck we stumble across it, if it's just good police work, if you want to call it, that we come across it. I think it's amazing that we even figure it out to begin with.
Ours, believe it or not, was good police work. So
I'd like to believe it. So thank you.
I'm telling you. So the roommate of this helicopter smuggler from the 1999 case showed up at the border November of 2004, wintertime. And he got sent to secondary inspection because he was like an associate.
Okay.
What did he have in his vehicle? A sat phone and a map of an area that you can't actually readily access in the winter. You actually have to, instead of driving an hour and a half to get there, you have to go down over a different mountain pass, and it's like a 5-hour drive. So we followed that guy.
Yeah.
And he went into this one area, and we're like, something's up with this guy, but we don't know what he's doing up here. And that led us to talking to local law enforcement. Local law enforcement says, there's been some report of a helicopter landing on this closed road that's closed in the wintertime.
Really?
And, you just start linking all these things together.
Right. No one is big, but when you start linking them together, things start painting a picture.
Yeah. And then we started, it goes without saying that we use some tracking technology to figure out where these vehicles were going. And because we saw our suspect go rent a vehicle at a local airport, and we followed him. We used some tracking technology to see where he was going, and it showed us a location in the national forest. We're like, okay, he was there at like 4:30 in the morning, like on a Tuesday. Let's go out there and see what's there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's again linking it all together. We went out there and looked around, and we're like, yeah, you could land a helicopter here. Look around in the dirt, and you could see, wow, that's the impressions of helicopter skids.
Right. Not only could you, someone has.
Somebody has. And so we're like, all right, let's set up like a remotely activated camera. This is like old tech.
Yeah.
Game cams that we can buy at Cabela's are a lot better than what we were using back then. And we started gathering video evidence of what was going on there. And what did we see? We saw a Robinson R-22 helicopter with a sling load hanging below it, all these huge duffel bags. And we caught, an actual like offload, on videotape. So then we knew what we were up against. And, And, and it just builds from there.
Right.
You take down one guy, and you know this because, in the global war on terrorism, that's how we operated. We take down one guy, we exploit his communication device, we exploit his navigation device, we learn new things. Now we have more locations in the force to look at. We put out more technology. We gather more video. It's just like, and then you're learning how they're doing it. So it actually makes you more effective.
Right.
The more you know.
Yeah.
And then we were able to.
I love that story because it starts with border security. And that's what it starts with. And it just, as if any of our listeners have to be reminded how important border security is, but it's so important on so many different aspects.
Yep.
If you don't know who's coming in, then you never get to see those questionable items and then start to piece this puzzle together. Yeah. If they just come in a porous border, so many missed opportunities. Who knows what we should have known if we had border security from the north and the south?
Yeah, and then the other thing is that when some of these suspects or targets, show up at the border, whether it's at the land border or at the airport, I mean, that's your shot to engage with them.
Right.
You're either going to engage overtly or you're going to engage covertly, meaning you're going to follow them, see what they're doing, see what they're up to. And I used to tell my guys, and I was fortunate that at that point I was a first line supervisor. So I was like a supervisor in the field with a group of special agents. And I had like 4 brand new guys. And they were shit hot, like I was when I started. They wanted to get involved in stuff. So I used to tell them, I'm like, all right, we're on this guy, and hey, we're following him to the ends of the earth. And they knew what that meant. We are going to stick with this guy until we figure out what he's up to or see what he's doing. And, it was kind of like after a couple of our surveillances, a couple of guys learned, because the surveillances would turn into like multi-day surveillances. They learn like, oh yeah, I got my bag packed with my extra clothes.
Right.
And my toiletry kit. And then those guys that would forget, I'm like, hey, there's always Walmart. Go in there
That's
and
right.
Get some fresh underwear and t-shirts,
Well, thanks to technology, it's become a little bit easier. But even with that, man, I don't think people realize how difficult surveillance is. You just don't follow people, for the first time and get away with it. Especially if you do, it's only because they weren't that important anyway, and they weren't really looking for it. But if someone's looking for someone following them, it can be very difficult not to be seen. There's a reason surveillance teams do just that. That some teams do just that, because it is an art.
Yeah,
it is not easy. And once they see you, it's the ramifications of that is huge. They can completely go underground, and it's easy to get overly aggressive with that as well.
So that's good segue for, we partnered with our law enforcement partners in the U.S. Forest Service because the smugglers were operating the forest. So our Forest Service partners could tell us, hey,
access and placement, they're already there.
And the other thing is, this is what's permissive in the forest and not. So if you want to look normal out here, you got to do this, you got to do that. Yeah. So that they don't think that you're
so you don't
a bunch
look
of cops. So you look like a mountain biker. You look like a fly fisherman. You look like a hunter.
Yeah.
So we learned a lot from our partners in the Forest Service, and they taught us, all about their area of operations, and we taught them about smuggling cases. Yeah. So it was a good
back to communication.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if you don't seek out those partners, actively seek them out, then there's no communication you had from the get-go.
Yeah, and then the other component that we're not even talking about here is trust.
Yes.
We're going to go work in their area. We trust them as a partner. They see that, now they trust us, and that's what enhances that relationship. If you don't trust your partners, whether the people that are shoulder to shoulder with you or the people in another agency, then you're not going to maximize the output.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't matter if it's law enforcement, the military, business. So much hinges on relationships. I mean, that's been a life lesson of mine over and over and over again. And if you didn't, and what you think started out, as just that, now you know them. Now you have a relationship. You have no idea where that's going to go from there. Or the next time they're just going to contact you randomly and say, "Hey, we've worked together in the past. We know you guys. This is something else that's now come across our plate. We want you to know about." And that never happens without relationships.
Yeah. and it's about the reputation of the agency. You build that reputation, you build the reputation of the Delta Force.
Right.
And so no matter who's in the unit, they know, hey, call those guys.
Yeah.
Because they're always there for us. The people that have come before us, work with them. They're super reliable.
Right.
Super trustworthy.
Yeah.
And
be someone worth calling.
Yeah. Great.
Just
great way to say it. Yeah.
be someone worth calling.
Well,
be tier 1 at everything you do. That person's worth calling.
Yeah. Yeah. After my assignment in the Northwest, I went to work at Embassy London. I was our deputy attaché in our office. And I would tell our people there, I'm like, we want them to be in love with HSI.
Yeah.
No matter who's in HSI, we want them to be in love with it. And it's like the HSI rock, we all have to pick it up together and show them what it is. But don't ever think that you can stand on the rock while we're all holding it up.
Yeah.
We all have to be working together.
I preach this a lot to SWAT teams or anyone that'll have me. And it also goes to culture. And if you build a healthy, strong culture, and usually holding the standards is what equates to a healthy culture, but it's not just holding the standards. You can enforce standards like a dick and nobody wants to work for you or with you. But with holding standards, a healthy culture of winning and a healthy culture of aggressiveness, appropriate level of aggressiveness. When you have that type of culture, then it doesn't matter who. It's not a personal relationship where, oh well, I know if I call this guy, we're going to get results. I don't know if he's not working there anymore, if we're going to get results. Like you're talking about, they're in love with HSI. They know everyone who comes to this organization is a known factor.
Yeah.
Yeah, culture's huge, and I think it's underestimated. It's hard to build, and it's easy to lose. You also did some work with JTTF as well, the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Tell us a little bit about that and your time there.
Yeah, so when I was in the Miami office, I was in our illegal exports group. I started working with the JTTF Miami over at the FBI office. Became like a full-time guy there. Working with them. It was a pretty good task force. I mean, it was us, Customs, Metro-Dade, City of Miami, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, a bunch of FBI agents, and one Border Patrol agent. So at the time, that was the Clinton era. And the Clinton era, don't mistake Clinton era, I mean Bill Clinton, president, not Hillary Clinton,
State Department,
Secretary of State.
Okay.
So the Clinton administration didn't want to have anything to do with Cuba in a sense. They had like a position of restraint. It was either, we don't do anything with the Cubans, with them or against them or for them whatsoever. So for example, if you were to submit an export license to try to export something to Cuba, they wouldn't even action it. They wouldn't deny it. It would be like as if you didn't submit your license request.
Okay.
So they were just doing nothing with the Cuban government. And so at the same time, there was this proliferation of these Miami-based anti-Castro militant groups, which, on its face, a lot of what they were doing is completely illegal. It was groups of guys that would go out and Everglades or East Everglades and train with firearms, and absolutely nothing wrong with that. Possess with firearms, train with firearms. Generally, we never saw an automatic firearm being used by them, so totally legal. But then there were some of them that would do these what they called missions against Cuba, we would call them aquatic drive-by shootings of Cuban tourist hotels. But essentially what they would do is they'd jump in a go-fast boat from like the Florida Keys, either Marathon, Key Largo, a couple of guys with rifles. They'd go off the Cuban tourist beaches and they would shoot at the tourist hotels. And in their minds, they thought that if they could ruin the Cuban tourism economy, they could precipitate the fall of the Castro government.
What's the saying I'm trying to think of right now? Good intentions, poor judgment.
Yeah.
Just indiscriminately shooting.
Or misplaced, or good intentions but misplaced, or something to that effect. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. On the surface level of that story, I'm thinking, okay, anti-Castro.
Yeah.
I'm for this.
Me too.
Going out in the woods and shooting guns, I'm for this. Well, yeah. Getting on boats, I get on boats.
Yeah.
Put it all together. Get on boats and shoot at random hotels, aquatic drive-bys.
Yeah.
You lost me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because it's not gonna. Well, there's only innocent people are going to be hurt, and it's not going to have the effect any effect.
Yeah, and those tourist hotels down there are like owned by Spanish concerns and Italian business concerns, and it's mostly European tourists that are down there. So, yeah, our mission, they had their mission, we had our mission, was to basically stop them from doing that.
Yeah,
and but at the same time, it was about stopping them. It wasn't like, hey, we don't need to like prosecute any of these guys. Let's just like affect their ability to carry out these attacks. So we had in the Customs Service what I would consider the perfect law, beautiful law, like a piece of Mar-a-Lago chocolate cake, as our current president would describe. It was a law that allowed us to seize arms and munitions that were intended for illegal export, being illegally exported, or having been previously illegally exported.
Okay.
So no matter at what stage of the process that we encountered these guys trying to pull off one of their missions, we essentially could seize their arms. Oftentimes we'd seize their boats. So for example, once we had a tip on a group of guys that was going to go do a mission. We weren't sure where they were going. And it may have been Friday, and we really didn't want to work the whole weekend. So as they're driving down the overseas highway down to the Keys, we decide, let's just car stop them and talk to them.
Yeah.
Communication.
That's right.
And we walk up and we're talking to these guys and we're like, hey, what's going on? Who are you? And this is who we are. And they kind of knew who we were through our reputation of success against some of these other groups. And what's in the trunk? And the guy responds, what's in the trunk? It's not for use in the United States. We're going to take it to Cuba. Oh, thank you very much. Intended for illegal export.
Right.
So we were able to seize their trunk load of weapons and ammunition and still have the weekend off.
What were they using? Do you remember the type of munitions?
It was a variety. They typically use like the semi-automatic AK type rifle. Okay. That's what we'd see a lot. We saw some FALs, all semi-auto.
Yeah.
Not often would you see an AR-15, but usually the AKs were pretty cheap. Or the SKS.
Yeah,
was in use by them.
I'd imagine with some standoff, you'd want that 7.62. It'll go a few hundred extra meters. I don't know if that mattered to them or not.
Yeah. But we were also able to seize 2 Barrett 50 calibers from them.
Yeah,
remember when the Barretts came out?
Yeah.
And where are they? In Murfreesboro, Tennessee is where Barrett was from. And so our guys, targets had bought some of those. So we were able to seize 2 of those that they were using as well.
If you've ever been to any of my tactical training classes, then you know how adamant I am about the use of white light and the importance of a quality, high-powered, tactical light. That's why I use cloud defensive tac lights. You can't hit what you can't see, and neither can the bad guys. Clearly identify your target and simultaneously overwhelm his vision with hundreds and even thousands of lumens. Get serious about defending yourself and your family. Go to clouddefensive.com and use promo code Tier1 to get 30% off your order. That's right, 30%. You won't find a better light than this, and you won't find a better deal than this. What happens when you guys confiscate boats or confiscate cars or confiscate weapons? I don't know if there's a single answer for all three, or all three have different avenues to them.
Well, back in the Customs Service, and it still holds now in Homeland Security, there's a fines, penalties, and forfeitures office that manages all the seized property. They do the legal process, whether it's an administrative seizure or civil seizure, and the person that we seize something from typically gets a notice of seizure, and they can actually file a petition for what they call remission or mitigation, to get the item back or get a penalty reduced. They may provide some extenuating circumstance, not in this kind of crime that I'm talking about here, but there may be something else where, hey, I was an innocent third party. These guys used my boat. I didn't know. Here's the proof. I wasn't even around here.
Right. Yeah. There's a great example.
Yeah. So.
And then what do they, and if they don't get it back, they just end up going to auction? Do guns just get demolished and unused? Do you know by chance what happens?
At the time, all firearm seizures were going to our National Firearms Program, which is located at Fort Benning.
Okay.
Because that's where our firearms tactical training and firearms program office is located. So back then, they were all going there. I think most of them were in storage for quite a long time, and I don't know how that sausage is made. Whether they get sold or decommissioned or what.
I'm in the market potentially this next summer for a boat, so we'll talk a little bit more about where those boats go. Wink.
Yeah.
Some relationships you may have. I'm kidding. If anyone wants to take that too far.
It's funny to say that because,
unless you got a good deal on a boat.
Boats and cars do go at auction, and we can't go to an auction and try to buy.
Stuff,
I could. And we can't even send a family member.
Right. So, I could see how there's a conflict of interest there.
Yeah, you would get fired.
Well, it's the little bit of some parallels there with your work at JTTF in Cuba, because don't let his last name fool you. Ostrovsky.
Yeah.
You're Cuban.
Yeah.
With a Russian last name.
So my grandfather's Russian.
Well, you're American, but you have Cuban in your lineage.
Right. So, long story short, my Russian grandfather left Russia, fled the Russian Revolution, went to China, met my grandmother in China, who's also Russian. They got married. My dad was born in Shanghai. My dad grew up in Tianjin, China. And of course, living in a Russian household in China, going to an international school. So he spoke Chinese, Russian, and English that he learned at school. When he was 15, his family decided to leave China, because this is after World War II. Now the communists are coming into China. So they're leaving. Where are they going? Oh, they go to Cuba.
They can't get away from
Unbeknownst to them, my dad completes high school in Cuba, and he ends up meeting my mom, and they get married in early 1959. And that's when everything happened with Castro, and they soon discover that, he's a communist too.
Yeah.
And they leave Havana and come to the United States. So, it's kind of crazy. I mean, fleeing communism all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it.
And, and my dad, he got his Cuban citizenship. So actually, when he came to the United States, he was a Cuban.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's my story. That's how I have a Russian last name. And, it's funny because my mom didn't have a great command of the English language. So when we were young, we spoke Spanish at home. So Spanish is really my first language, not English, because we spoke Spanish at home with her.
That's got to throw people off.
Yeah.
Because you don't look Spanish at all. No hint of of an accent. And that's your first language.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
you got. Well, I'll say this about Cubans as well. I do have an affinity for Cubans, and it's because like most people, because whatever interaction that you have with people. And here in Florida, there's obviously a larger percentage of the rest of the country of Cubans or people of Cuban descent, and just generally, they're great Americans. They're hardworking. They have conservative family values. They know what socialism and communism does, and they couldn't be any more against that and any prouder to be an American in here. So I really hope. I think it's long overdue. I think we have the person in place. I do. I hope something comes of the Cuban government and people, whatever that may mean or entail. They've been waiting a long time for something positive. And if we're gonna deny our enemies a foothold in the Western Hemisphere through Venezuela, which I agree with, like we talked about a little bit before this, I don't really understand all the secondary and tertiary effects of gaining control of Venezuela, if you will, through a proxy or making them an ally and denying them the dictator that Maduro was. But we still have a problem here, and that's the Cuban government. And if we were to take care of that, we could at least isolate the Western Hemisphere from our enemies.
Yeah, and I mean the Cuban people are suffering.
Yeah,
that truly is a country of the haves and the have squat, not have not have squat. And they're treated very poorly, and people are rounded up for no reason whatsoever, and just for exercising freedom of speech. What would be tantamount to freedom of speech in the United States, they don't have that down there, and you could end up in prison down there for some very weak ass reason, and suffer, and then your family's suffering, and it's just, it's long overdue.
And then, of course, selfishly as a cigar guy, I'd love to go down to Cuba. It's a beautiful area. I've only seen it through pictures and talking to people, but we can't go down there, and I'd love to visit Cuba one day. I would.
It would be incredible. I mean, it's a ginormous island.
Yeah.
With some areas of pristine areas, wildlife, mountains. I mean, everything. And it's 90 miles from the United States.
Right.
Yeah.
I always hear it's crazy that if you were to go down there, it's almost a place that's frozen in time. They have like 1950s and 60s cars that they have. They keep running there because they can't get newer stuff. And there's just a lot of vintage things that they continue to make work out of necessity. But it's almost like going back in time when you go there.
Yeah.
Again, haven't been there, but I've seen the pictures of people showing me stuff like that. I mean, that's crazy. I'd love to go.
Yeah, it'd be. I would love to go down there as well. I'd like to see, the house that my mother grew up in. I'd like to see the apartment building that my dad and his parents lived in. It'd be a fascinating adventure.
Well, when Trump fixes that, we'll go down there for a tour of memory lane and smoke some cigars.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, that. Again, it goes back to the people of Cuban descent are they just happen to be great Americans because they know what wrong looks like, they know what right looks like, and your family is no exception to that rule. Not only did you spend 31 years serving this country as a HSI special agent, but your son served in the Marine Corps as well. Want to talk about this. Haven't been excited about. I'm sure you're not. It's not something you enjoy talking about, but it's one of those subjects that has to be talked about. Your son lost his life in a training accident with Marine Corps. Where do you want to start with that story?
Well, I think we need to start with him.
Let's go.
Yeah, I mean Jack. His name is Jack Ryan Ostrovsky. He does not have a middle name. His first name is hyphenated. So his name is Jack Ryan. My wife named him.
Where'd that come from?
Well, we'll say that she was reading Clancy books when she was pregnant. and that's why she named him Jack Ryan.
I love
But
it.
actually, her father, his name is Jack.
Okay.
So he's named after my wife's father. But
People call him JR because of that?
no, they never called him JR.
Okay. They call him Jack around, or would some people even call him Jack Ryan?
They just call him Jack.
Okay.
It's actually, you'd only call him Jack Ryan if we were pissed off.
That's right.
His full name. But he told me a story that when he was in boot camp, the scribe saw that his name was Jack Ryan, because like in the military records, they don't put the hyphen in.
Okay.
So it's like one big word, Jack Ryan. And they were like, Jack Ryan, what the heck? You know? So they started making fun of him at boot camp. But Jack was, he wanted to be like me and you.
Yeah.
You know, he was going to be a man of action, I believe. You know, he was born in 1999, you know, prior to 9/11. But then when he was a young boy, he was surrounded by law enforcement officers, you know, in this post 9/11 environment. All of my law enforcement partners, you know, at the time we were in Bellingham, Washington. My investigative group, we were actually co-located with Customs and Border Protection's air unit. So it would be like you guys having guys that work every day with the 160th, you know, although you do anyways, but
Right.
but we were actually in their facility. And so a lot of our friends were, you know, pilots. A lot of them were Marine pilots, Navy pilots. And it all just kind of rubbed off on him. He wanted to serve. I think, you know, again, he was influenced by, as he became a teenager, you know, what he's seeing on television, you know, watching Generation Kill and all these other shows and movies. And so, you know, he graduated from high school and went to college for a year. And he was in the ROTC program at college and Army. And he came back from a field training exercise, you know, like ROTC does. Wet, dirty, shivering, and smiling.
Love it.
And he immediately declared, he was like, I want to be in the infantry, you know? And so we're like, okay, sounds great, you know? And, you know, I've always, and I learned this from an RCMP officer, I've always been into what I call the meal deal. If it's moral, ethical, affordable, and legal, I'll support you. So what he wanted to do was fit the parameters of the meal deal. So I was like, yeah, right on. You know, a little later, he came to us and said, I want to become a Marine. We were like, really? And I'm like, not Army RTC. And he goes, I want to be in the infantry. He goes, but I want to learn the job and do the job before I'm leading other people doing the job. You know? So I was like, okay, sounds great. You know, and it took him a while to enlist and figure it out, but he went over to the recruiters and talked to them on his own and was kind of getting, not the runaround, but, you know, you're talking to a 19-year-old, so it's kind of hard to, like, what did he say? What did they tell you? You know, what are they offering you?
Right.
You know, we're trying to put our finger on it, but he went and did his ASVAB and he went to MEPS and got his medical done. He had his minor medical issue that he had to rectify, got that rectified. And, but yeah, he just went all in, you know, that's what he wanted to do. That was the vision for himself.
You did something right as a father, you know, hearing his reasons of why as well, because I preach it, you know, all the time. Decisions are only surface level, but you know, intent behind those decisions is everything. And hearing his intent behind his decision is just, it's what you want to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're super proud of him because, you know, like my dad, who was a self-made man, I consider myself a self-made man.
Absolutely.
nobody handed me my job opportunity,
Right.
And I was like, yeah, here he is. He's emulating that. He's going to be a self-made man himself.
Yeah.
And I had already retired. So I was really of the mindset, and so was my wife. Plus, what I didn't mention is Jack has a fraternal twin brother,
Really?
Sam. So Jack, had made this decision, and that's what he wanted to do. We're fully supportive of his decision. And so I had already retired. So I was of the mindset that, okay, now it's his turn. He's going to do
Right.
this. I'm going to stand on the sidelines and cheer him on. As a young boy, he was in the house and would see me come home every night. Hey, Dad, did you catch any bad guys today? And I'd tell him a story. But now it was my turn to cheer him on.
Right.
Be in the stands and watch him and support him. So he was the first one out of the two boys that made that decision of what he wanted to do. So we're super proud of him.
Yeah.
Couldn't be prouder.
Where's 0311 infantry?
Yeah, so he signed one of those 03XX contracts because you don't get your last two, the full designation until you complete the School of Infantry.
Okay.
So, he went to MCRD San Diego, ended up being in the honor platoon, which was like, okay, yeah, I've kind of seen that before. Didn't surprise me.
Yeah.
And went to the School of Infantry and got out of there and got his 0311 designation as a rifleman. The kid could shoot. I mean, he grew up around guns and, I remember him and his brother Sam, I'd take him to the NRA 22 caliber program and they learned how to shoot there,
Yeah.
under somebody else's instruction, and so yeah, he loved to shoot, and he was just like happy that he got his dream job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where was he stationed at on the first go round?
So he was at Camp Pendleton with
Okay.
the 1st Battalion, 4th Marines. They're known as the China Marines.
Okay.
Now, when he got put in that unit, we felt it was like fortuitous because my dad grew up in China.
Right.
My dad, and because my dad passed away in 2021, but I talked to my dad as Jack was becoming a Marine and we became a China Marine. He goes, I know the China Marines. He goes, I used to see them because they live in the international district and the Marines were there basically protecting that area. So to us, it was like fortuitous that Jack was in that unit.
Yeah.
It was like almost like full circle. And, prior to COVID, the Marine Corps, when they would do a float or a MEU, they would sometimes do port calls in Shanghai. So we're like, man, wouldn't it be cool if Jack got to go to Shanghai?
Yeah.
Or even just see it from Anchorage, which it's a different Shanghai from 1932 when my dad was born there, but to see that, so we were very pumped up and excited about all that,
Yeah. Did he get to go on a MEU?
No. When Jack was killed in training, it was in their pre-deployment training for the MEU.
Okay.
They were their unit had actually been sent over to the 15th Marine Expeditionary Unit, so they were their battalion landing team.
And what was the circumstances that he was under when the training accident happened?
Yeah, so they were aboard the USS Somerset, which is an amphibious ship, that carries, at the time it was carrying amphibious assault vehicles, helicopters up on the deck. And they were off of San Clemente Island, and they were doing a combat raid on San Clemente, basically what they call a mechanized raid, which is launching from the ship in these amphibious assault vehicles and landing on the island, proceeding to an objective, and then they were to return to the ship via the AAVs. Yeah. So what happened was what we know now, because we didn't know much prior to that. We just knew that he's doing his pre-deployment training, and it's one of the requirements of him going on deployment. And I remember about a month before that, he told me that he wanted to go skydiving. And I was like, why? And he's like, oh, another Marine did it, and I want to do it. And I'm like, don't do it. Because if you somehow break your leg or whatever, you may miss the MEU, and that's part of your career to go on this deployment. So you do not want to miss a deployment because of something stupid.
Right, yeah. Do that when you get back.
Yeah, do that when you get back, when you have like a pocket full of money,
Right.
And yeah, they were on the ship. They basically did their mechanized raid. They launched in AAVs from ship to shore.
And those are the assault amphibious vehicles. I believe they even float, right? And it doesn't,
float.
Doesn't look like they should.
They're tracked vehicles that float.
Right.
And it has like a small propeller drive when they're in the water.
Yeah.
Not very maneuverable. I wouldn't want to be in any kind of high surf or even inside the surf near shore. I mean, vehicle's not made for that.
Right.
It's made for basically going in a straight line from ship straight to shore.
Yeah.
Up on the beach, dropping the ramp and letting the Marines out.
That's right.
Letting the boys out. So so they had successfully made it to the island, did the raid, but then on the way back from the raid to the beach, one of the vehicles broke down. So there was a delay in them returning to the ship, and multi-hour delay from like 11 a.m. till like 4 p.m. They finally decided to send most of the vehicles back. That being said, all of these vehicles were in very poor condition. What we now know, they had been assigned by the 3rd Amphibious Assault Battalion. Basically, they're like, would you call them an enabler? They bring the vehicle, and Jack and the other Marines are the embarked troops.
Okay.
They're riding in the back. They have no responsibility to operate the vehicle. They're just being transported, right?
Yep.
So that battalion had assigned these, what we know now, a bunch of poor condition vehicles. And so even before the day of the raid, one of the vehicles had already broken down and could not be used during the raid. When they went to launch the raid, they were supposed to use 2 safety boats off the ship, 2 large rigid hull inflatable boats with Navy crews. Both of those boats were down, and they proceeded with the raid. So they didn't have any safety boats in the water. They had designated one of the AAVs to be like the safety boat, but it's already loaded with people and gear. Right. So that's not the best equipment to use.
Right. And not very maneuverable, as we've already established.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. So when about the 4 o'clock hour, they decided to send a bunch of the AAVs back to the ship. The ship was a lot farther offshore than when it had put them in the water to go to the island. They typically just put them in the water outside the harbor, and they go in. They say swim in, that's their term.
Okay.
And but the ship was farther offshore because they were doing helo ops, and apparently bad communication. The ship didn't know that they had launched to go back to the ship, so the ship was even moving farther and farther out. We're getting into the afternoon. It's windier. Wave height is a lot greater. It's no longer, safe to be in those kinds of conditions. They're using, back to the vehicles. They're using vehicles that had basically been deadlined for this exercise. That's what had been assigned. And it is alleged that the reason why those vehicles were assigned, because the commander of that unit wanted to keep the good condition vehicles back for inspection. And he knew, allegedly, that they could use new money to fix these shit-ass vehicles.
Right.
So it's kind of like an accounting game, funding game, not accounting, funding.
Right. Yep.
So they did the exercise with these poor condition vehicles. So the vehicles that returned to the ship, they left the broken down one on the island, 2 others on the island with the broken down one. Most of the leadership stayed back. And so Jack's in a vehicle. It's like a line of vehicles. He's in the vehicle. It's like third from last. But then either the last or the second from last in this, let's call it a conga line, chasing the ship, broke down, started taking on water. The vehicle put the other vehicle in tow and took it back to the beach. So now Jack's vehicle is the last vehicle.
Okay.
His vehicle breaks down. Apparently those vehicles, parts of the bilge pump are tied to the transmission. And what we know now is the transmission on his vehicle had lost all its transmission fluid. It had already been leaking on the island. They had detected it, that it had a leak. They tried to put more transmission fluid in it, but it stopped working. That vehicle, the vehicle that Jack was in, since the transmission works part of the bilge pumps, was taking on water. Mm-hmm. We now know that one of the reasons why it was taking on water was because a headlight gasket had been put in backwards. So it wasn't working the way it's intended to keep water out. So that vehicle's sinking. They lose their ability to communicate with their radios because the water is over top of the batteries.
Right.
And for 25 minutes, the vehicle commander, who's not an infantry marine, he's just a commander of that vehicle, is waving they call it the November flag. It's a blue and white checkered flag. He's waving the flag. He's trying to signal for help. Although he's got flares. He's got pyrotechnic flares.
Yeah.
Nobody sees him waving the flag. They're essentially sinking, dead in the water. And
because Navy, the boat they're going to doesn't even know that they're coming. Doesn't even know to look out for them.
Yeah, they started looking out late, but the reason why the Navy, it's like a convergence of all these different things, is that the reason why the Navy didn't have a rear lookout on the ship was because they were doing helo ops.
The helo operations.
So they didn't have a rear lookout.
Yeah.
So there's no rear lookout to see this waving flag, or to see a flare for that matter, although I think
chances of seeing a flare are higher than a flag.
Right. If the vehicle commander, I believe, if he would have used a flare, it would have been seen. Why? Because we know from helo ops or any kind of flight ops, they're always looking for traffic.
Yeah.
Right. Aircraft are up looking for other aircraft, looking for things. Yeah. In your case, it's not a flare. It's a freaking man pad being shot at you, right?
Right.
Or whatever, what you used to do. So there's nobody to see that waving flag until the first vehicle gets back to the ship and goes up the ramp and into the ship. And that somebody on that vehicle had come out the hatch and turned around to look back at the other vehicles coming up. Right. And he sees in the distance a waving flag. And by the time they got other AAVs turned around to come back, it was just almost too late. They kept Jack and the 7 other Marines and Navy corpsmen inside the vehicle with the hatch opened. There were some other embarked Marines that got out on the top. Okay. But this vehicle commander was wanting to do what they call a troop transfer, to bring another vehicle alongside. Right. They'd transfer into that one. But it was just way too late, because it's kind of like, when you're washing dishes and you've got a glass floating in the water and it already has water in it. Right. And as soon as there's too much water in it, it's going to sink. Right. That was like the kind of situation that they were in. So there was like no intermediate point of safety. What they really had to do was egress, get out with their life jackets and just get into the ocean.
Right.
But the vehicle commander was convinced that he wanted to do a troop transfer. And frankly, I think there was a level of lack of blue water competency on his part, because, if you have a group of 13 Marines in the water with their yellow life jackets inflated and they're all linked together, that's a huge target to see from the air.
Right.
That's not like looking for a marijuana bale floating in the ocean in a high sea. That's like a huge target. And those PFDs provide, 70 pounds of flotation. So there's nobody at risk of drowning. Mm-mm. He just made the wrong decision. He could have been the hero, and he made the wrong decision. And when the other vehicle came alongside, a wave came in and basically inundated the vehicle, and it sank. And
the Marines were still inside it.
Yeah, he was still inside it, as far as we know. Some of the Marines that were on the top survived.
Right.
The vehicle commander survived. Actually, Jack's platoon commander, a young lieutenant, was in his vehicle because the platoon commander has his own hatch. So he was already out on the top, so he survived. The vehicle driver couldn't open his hatch. This is an amazing story. The thing sunk. He's a former high school swimmer, and he was able to swim his way out from inside the vehicle into the troop compartment and out, and he did a free ascent. He actually suffered some kind of like partial drowning, bit of a brain injury because of that.
Okay.
And he survived. But ultimately, it came down to, poor equipment, no safety boats, because the safety boats would basically be running alongside of them.
Right. That's where you got your troop transport from.
Right.
Right there.
And failure to use a flare, which I believe a flare would have
started this process sooner,
accelerated the rescue of them. And I mean, basically, you can go to a Coast Guard auxiliary course and learn that flares is the way that you signal for distress. So I just think that he just didn't have the level of competency for the situation that he was in.
How many Marines lost their life on that?
So
incident?
it was Jack and 7 others, and a Navy corpsman.
9 altogether?
Yeah, 9 altogether. It was the largest loss of Marines in a amphibious training incident in the history of the Marine Corps. Yeah, and they were ultimately found. The vehicle's found on the bottom of the ocean. It was on the bottom at 385 feet, and most of them were actually outside the vehicle. So somehow, as it was sinking, they all got out the hatch. But, when you're, let's say, 30 feet underwater, your 70 pounds of flotation from that PFD isn't going to do anything.
Right. Yeah. That means atmosphere's down. It doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, a lot of them still had their gear on. They hadn't dropped their gear. So it's just a very unfortunate, sequence. Like nothing was positive. It was all negative.
Right.
There was nothing positive about it.
For that amount of loss of life on such a slow sinking ship seems just almost unfathomable. It wasn't a catastrophic, event that no one had time to make a decision, and it just seems so unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it didn't happen. I mean, it kind of showed me that there was a lack of duty of care. Whoever was running the whole exercise, or basically should have said, "Hey, we're not ready to go.
Yeah.
We have like broken down vehicles.
You can back this all the way
We
up.
don't have safety boats. We need to wait. You know, we're here on this pre-deployment training exercise, which is like a 10-day trip on the ship. It's like, all right, move us back to day 8. You know, when everything's lining up. But so yeah, it's very. No, I mean, without question, it's just completely devastating to our family and very disappointing that's how his service ended. And the loss of all of their lives. You know, they're all sons and some were young husbands. And
Where were you at when you got the call?
well, interesting enough, my wife and I were in our car. It was because this happened Thursday night at 5:30. And as I told you before, a friend of mine and I were online doing a pilot episode for a podcast that we were thinking about starting up. And so it actually happened when we were online. We had no idea until the next morning. We're driving to go hiking to a hiking spot, my wife and I, in the morning. And we get a call from a neighbor that's down in California. And she says, hey, in the news, there was a story about the Marines losing an amphibious assault vehicle. And we're like, oh shit, that's Jack's unit.
Yeah.
Off of San Clemente Island. So, you know, we had been told that, hey, you know, essentially no news is good news. And I was talking to my wife about it. I'm like, do you still want to go hiking or you want to go back to the house? I'm like, I don't think we're going to find anything out. I go, but I do have the chaplain's phone number because I had met him once when we were down at Camp Pendleton. So I called the chaplain that I'd met and I said, hey, this is who I am. He goes, hey, I'm aware of the incident. He goes, I'm no longer with that unit. And he goes, and I do remember your son's name, Ostrovsky. So I was like, all right. He's like, I don't know anything. I go, well, it stands still, right? No news is good news. He goes, yes, no news is good news. He goes, I understand that there was a fatality that night because there was one Marine that drowned and he was recovered that night. And but he said that family's already been notified. So I'm like thinking, okay, haven't heard anything. So yeah, let's go hiking. And so we're out hiking and not too far from the house, about 50 miles from the house. And my wife's phone rings and it's our other son, Sam, saying, hey, Mom, there's 2 Marines at the door. We're like, oh, shit. Okay. I gave them your phone number. They're going to call you. Okay. So my wife gets a call from, at the time, he was the first sergeant for the Marine Reserve Unit in Springfield, Oregon. Great guy. Casey Chandler. He's a sergeant major now. Wonderful person. And he says, hey, I need to speak to you about Jack. When can you be back at your house? And we're like, well, we're 50 miles away. We're on the way. You know, we're like up on this little half mountain. So we got to hike down and run to our car and drive back. And he came and met us and he told us that, hey, their duty status, this is what happened. Their duty status is unknown. And I'm your point of contact and I will let you know everything that I know. Okay. And, you know, we talked and later that evening, so this is now Friday evening, he calls back and he goes, hey, I need to come talk to you in the morning. I go, well, we're home, you know, come, always welcome, come to our house. And he showed up and basically told us that late Friday, the commanding general had called off the search and they were bringing in recovery assets to search for the vehicle on the bottom of the ocean, which would take some time because those, some of your listeners may know or not know, but a lot of the marine salvage stuff is on commercial vessels that are under contract to the Navy. So they bring them in with specialized equipment. Yeah.
What was going through your mind during this? That were you expecting the worst deep down, or you'd suppress that and be like, well, we don't know, so don't go there?
Well, I did know something that a couple of weeks prior, I'd been talking to Jack, and he said to me, he goes, you know, those things are floating coffins. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And I go, because he'd never been on one in the water until the day of this exercise. He had been on one on land, kind of like driving around on a range, but he'd never been on one in the water. So he said, they're floating coffins. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, those things break down all the time and they sink. I'm like, dude, if these things sunk all the time, they wouldn't be using them. You know, that's my perspective, you know, and what do I know about amphibious assault vehicles? You know, I know go fast boats and I know helicopters, you know, I don't know anything about that stuff. And he goes, if I ever get trapped inside of one, he goes, I'm going to shoot myself. And I'm like, what? I'm like, whoa, slow down. Like, what are you talking about? He goes, I'm going to steal a bullet and always have one in my pocket in case I'm trapped inside of one of those. And I was just like, okay. But what I subsequently found out was that had actually happened in the Marine Corps, according to somebody else that told me that, I guess in Iraq, one of those vehicles went off a bridge into a river. And when they recovered the vehicle, the three, because it had flipped into the mud, when they recovered the vehicle, they had found that the 3 Marines had shot themselves. So that was lore or unit history that was passed down, you know, or told inside the unit. So I knew that this is his plan, but I did not tell my wife that.
No,
I did not tell her that. You know, Sam, his brother, had talked to a friend and said, I bet you they'll find him. He's just probably floating around somewhere out there or on the island wandering around, or, you know, he didn't have an understanding. And there was a lot of boats out there searching, doing a surface search, and nothing was found. And so, I told Sam, I'm like, look, Jack is most likely dead. This is not going to turn out good for him.
Yeah.
You know, and but it took some time for the recovery, because they had to bring this commercial vessel in. They bring in a vessel, they use a sonar thing that finds the vehicle, but then they have to bring in this other equipment that basically has like the big ROV, the ROV with all the articulating arms. They have other kinds of attachments and things to kind of handle this thing, plus the crane to pull the vehicle out of the water. And, we were getting daily reports from our first sergeant. Well, he's the CACO. They call it Casualty Calls Assistance Officer. That's one of his roles in Oregon. So we're getting daily reports and updates. And, on the 12th day, they're like, okay, they've been recovered. But in the interim, they had sent us a report that said the vehicle and your son was located on the bottom of the ocean. And I'm thinking that, he's inside the vehicle.
Yeah.
Oh, and he probably shot himself, because that's what he told me he was going to do, you know?
Yeah.
And what we didn't understand till much later was that, no, he was found on the bottom of the ocean, outside the vehicle. And so were most of them. I think only one was found inside the vehicle. The rest of them were found on the ocean floor. And we found that out and kind of figured that out was because after, they go to mortuary affairs at Dover. And after that, you get a report from mortuary affairs, and they say, hey, his body's, should not be viewed, because, he was on the ocean floor, and sea life took advantage of the situation. So then we realized, he was outside the vehicle on the ocean floor with everybody else. So yeah, it's just, it was awful to see his life come to that end like that. But, he was doing exactly what he wanted to do. And he was doing exactly what he believed that he should be doing with his life. So knowing that, gives me comfort. Yeah.
How would you describe the communication between you, your family, and the Marine Corps during this?
Well, I mean, this first sergeant, who's now a sergeant major, did an incredible job. I mean, I consider him to be like part of our family at this point.
Yeah.
He was incredible. When we flew to go to Dover, he picked us up at the airport in Philadelphia and drove us down to Dover. And then afterwards, he's like, "Where do you want to go?" I'm like, "Hey, we're going to go see some people in DC that we know." So drove us in that direction. And then like whatever we needed, he was with us. I trusted him. But I think there's limits to some of the information that they can provide. And I don't know at what point they receive a lot of the information because they're waiting for the results of the investigation, like what happened.
Right.
So we did have like 2 significant meetings with others, Marine officers that came to our house to talk to us about the results of the investigation. And, the investigation essentially showed that, poor conditioned equipment that shouldn't have been used, no safety boats. They didn't egress from that vehicle when they should have, not in time. And that was like the results of that incident. That being said, immediately after the unit memorial, the battalion commander and the company commander were relieved. And the battalion commander from the Amphibious Assault Battalion that provided the vehicles, he had already transferred out. He had been gone. So he was on the East Coast in some other assignment. Non-supervisory assignment, but essentially what they do is they'll put you like riding a desk,
right?
Yeah.
Between me, Drew, and every parent listening to this, it's not a far stretch at all to say that it's every parent's worst nightmare. No parent should ever have to bury their child. It's just. It's a stupid question. I mean, it just is. Like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jack was going to be the next leader of our family.
Yeah.
That's how we looked at him. He was like the older brother by 3 days. Long story. My wife had fraternal twins born 3 days apart.
Okay.
But he was going to be the next leader of our family, and we just had a very bright outlook for him and our family. So what it does is it destroys your future plans, and you have to make new plans. You have to figure out what you're doing different, and it's interesting. There used to be this thing called All Marine Radio. It was like an internet radio show that this retired Marine Major, Michael McNamara, did. And like every day he had like this online broadcast and stuff about the Marine Corps. And I was listening to that one day, listening to like critical analysis of this incident.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to learn, former investigator, retired investigator. I want to know as much as possible. That being said, when they came and presented the investigation to us, they give you all of those binders with all these statements and reports. And, I'd been working through that, and, there was no upside to anything that I read. No. It was all mistakes and tragedy. There was nothing positive at all. It was just like a broke ass situation, where, and I don't want to paint the entire Marine Corps.
No,
it was just
this is an isolated incident.
This isolated incident, this unit just
But we can't pretend like it didn't happen at the same time.
Right. Right. And, all things can happen simultaneously, which is a high-performing unit and another unit that isn't performing highly, right? So, I was listening to critical analysis of the incident, and I realized that this retired Marine major had this program called post-traumatic winning. I'm like, what is this? And I listened to it, and it was talking about, how to live your life after trauma, how to find joy after trauma. And I started listening to some of his interviews on that and information on that. And I was hearing a lot of stories. And he had learned a lot about how he developed his program was listening to what a bunch of Marines had told him. But then he started learning about things, trauma involving, non-service members, outside of those that served. And I was hearing like, oh, these people like were dealing with their trauma for like decades and decades and, abusing alcohol and abusing drugs and trying to deal with their trauma. And I was like, I don't have 30 years. I just freaking finished my career. Right. I'm in like the last third of my life, I would consider.
Right.
I'm not going to waste 30 years finding, how to solve this on my own,
right.
by trying to find the bottom of a bottle.
Right.
So I actually reached out to him. I was like, hey, I'd like to participate in your program and learn what you're talking about, and the program immediately like made sense to me. It was like very basic stuff, but it was like stuff that people don't talk about. So like one of the goals of the program is that you have to learn to coexist with trauma. And what does that mean? Well, feeling damaged by trauma is normal.
Right.
Those are normal feelings. And trauma is trauma is trauma. We're like all humans and we all like respond to it in the same way. Whether it was I was the victim of a sexual assault, I traumatically lost a loved one, I saw some other kind of trauma, violent crime or whatever. We all react to it the same way. So, like that all made sense to me. So I kind of felt it, how I was feeling, it was just like, oh, this is normal. This isn't just me.
Yeah.
So that was one of the goals of the program. The other goal of the program was if you want to, find joy again or live a good life after trauma, is that you have to embrace self-discipline, the D word. If you're struggling with trauma, don't abuse alcohol and drugs. Common sense.
It was, someone told me this, and it's just a simple truth, but I don't know why it's lost on so many people. I say that, it sounds a little judgy. I don't mean it in that aspect when I see it. But when I say it, it'll make more sense.
Yeah.
And he just said, I have friends like everyone else, and they've gone through really bad times like everybody else. And some of them have turned to alcohol like everybody else. And not one friend has ever told me, this happened, and you know what? I started drinking a lot, and things got better. Right. Said nobody ever. So why do we do it?
Yeah.
Don't get me, I understand. It's a little rhetorical. I understand
I have the same
why
thing.
we do it, but
nobody has successfully ever dealt with their trauma by abusing alcohol and drugs. Show me that one person.
Right.
That person doesn't exist.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, that being said, hey, I still drink. I just know that I have more than 2 drinks. Yeah. I kind of start feeling melancholic.
Yeah.
And so I kind of use the D word, discipline,
right,
in my life.
Yeah.
The other thing is try to have, a big stressor in people's lives, is financial stress.
Financial, yeah.
Right? So have financial health. Doesn't mean you're loaded. If you're rich, just don't live way beyond your means. Because sometimes it is push and pull.
Right.
Right. but that causes a lot of stress in people's lives. So try to have some discipline there. You know, the other thing is don't fake it.
Yeah.
Talk about your stuff, because what we strive is connection with others, like we're talking right now here. Because the alcohol and drugs isolates you. It sends you somewhere by yourself.
Right.
But what we really need is connection with others. And what we really need to do is to talk about our shit. You know, and I think back to your show when Bo was here talking about his dog.
Yeah.
And that's a very positive thing, because he's talking about what's bothering him, right?
And just on a Jack's gone, but he's not forgotten. You know, it's the same thing we say, every time when we say, every man dies twice.
Yeah.
His physical death and the last time his name is ever said. And I still do shots for that very reason, for the fallen.
Yeah.
And you just talking about your son ensures that he doesn't have to die twice on your watch.
Right.
And this story is a remembrance, story. But another story of it didn't have to happen. Let not that just be a bad part of this story. Hey, when these things start to build up, I've seen this story before. I've heard this story before. I know how it ends.
Yeah.
Stop. We can train tomorrow.
Yeah.
We can work tomorrow.
Right.
So there's a tomorrow still, guys.
Yeah. I had been told, and this isn't from me, but I was been told that, the reason why, because the mentality sometimes is, I don't want to commit career suicide.
Yeah.
By saying, I'm not ready. We can't do this today. Well, I'd rather that you commit career suicide than kill a group of service members.
Right.
What kind of honor is in that? You know?
And we talked about it earlier in this episode, like a healthy obsession to your craft. This would almost correlate to an unhealthy obsession that I want it so bad, everything has to be done and done now, and we'll force it. That's where it becomes an unhealthy obsession to your craft.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that could be part of that culture. Not a good part of the culture.
Right.
It could be part of the mentality in the officer ranks, those that aspire to, be a general one day. But then at the same time,
right.
I think you look at the bottom, you look at the grunts, and there's probably an unhealthy cultural part where they're like, if you lose any piece of gear, you're going to the brig. You're going to end up in Leavenworth.
Right.
And I could say, I bet you that was part of the mentality as to why these guys didn't drop their gear.
Right. Goes back to culture. No, something else we
it's
talked
not a good
about.
part of their culture.
Yeah. You touched on something that I don't want to completely deny either, because I spent long enough in the military to see this. Besides, an unhealthy, possibly obsession, but I can't rule out careerism. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy. I don't know anyone in this. We haven't named them, so so there's no darts being thrown at anyone personally. It's just an opinion or a what if does careerism come into play, because that's never healthy for anyone, because careerism only means you're looking out for you.
Right.
And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of seeing it in the military. I'm tired of seeing it in law enforcement.
Yeah.
And it seems like those guys never really pay the price for careerism.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
It's not a trait of, it's never been a trait of a leader that I've seen, a good trait.
Yeah. No, I mean, to be a leader, you have to be a visionary. You have to put yourself out there, and you really have to serve others, not be some high functioning conformist.
Right.
That just, it's like, well, we got to go, got to go now. Well, what do you mean we got to go now? We're not ready to go now.
How long ago now did that happen, where Jack and 8 others lost their life in this training exercise.
So it'd be July 30th, 2020. So
coming
he was
coming up on 5.5
6 years. Yeah. This July. He was 19 days from his 21st birthday.
5 years later, and they're tough questions. It's a tough subject. 5 years later, do you feel like you're in a position that you can handle this?
Yes, because I think I have some new tools.
Okay.
That I learned about, when I participated in this program, developed some relationships with some people that talk and share wisdom, have shared wisdom with me. And, I think, part of finding joy again is really giving to others, sharing post-traumatic wisdom with other people. Yeah. And, being that hand that reaches into the darkness and helps somebody else out. Because like when you help somebody transform their life, it actually transforms yours.
Right.
Right. And really, if you're a follower of the teachings of Christ, I mean, that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
That's the path that you want to be on, is to help others. And I've had a unique opportunity that I've been able to help other Gold Star families.
Yeah. I say it all the time. It's just true. I just don't know how people deal with life sometimes not being a Christian. I know that's going to sound weird to some people, and I don't care. Knowing that God's in control at the end of the day, knowing that, if I lost my son, that I know I would see him again. I mean, it's a bleak life. It's a bleak life without God.
Yeah,
it just is.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. What I can say, and you'd probably agree with me, is that I don't think God controls the things that mortal men do. Some of those things are out of his control. He can't steer bullets on the battlefield. Hit. You get hit, but then somebody standing a foot from you doesn't get hit. The old lady pushing her shopping cart down the sidewalk gets hit by some drunk driver that runs off the road. I mean, I just think that there's certain limitations. There's
always that, and it's just a deep conversation to be had between free will and God being all knowing. If God knows everything, then he knows, then it's been preordained because he knows what's going to happen. I don't think anything happens that surprises God, but he also gives us free will. And both of those subjects seem to be at odds with each other, yet they're not at the same time. I'm sure Drew's begging to weigh in on that, but it's true. We still have free will, and still allows, for whatever reason, men to allow mistake after mistake after mistake, what seems to be after mistake on this training exercise, and for bad things to happen. But at the same time, who am I to question God? As God himself said, were you there when I created the stars? Were you there when I parted the oceans and made land? Were you there when? No. Who are you to question God? And that's, people can say whatever they want about that outlook, but I know this: it allows me to deal with things, and at a rate that others can't. I'll just say can't, and it seems similar with you. Mm-hmm. If you will, we have a toast to Jack and the boys.
Sounds great.
To Jack in moderation.
Yep. To Jack.
Peter, I can't thank you enough for coming all the way out here, sharing your life story, sharing the story of your son, putting yourself out there for everyone to hear this. someone out there needs to hear it. And I just can't thank you enough for doing it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
You're not going to hit me up for a funny story.
You know, I just thought about that. I didn't know if
I've got a Jack story.
Heck, if it's a Jack story, it's very appropriate. Let's go.
So when he was a young boy, obviously he knew I was in law enforcement, and I'd come home, like I said before, and hey, Dad, he'd say, like, did you catch any bad guys today? And what happened? You know, I'd tell him the story. Yeah, we followed these guys and we went to this other city and kicked in this door, and, you know, we found this and we found that, and we got him. And he'd always look up at me and he'd go, did you kick him in the balls? And I was like, kick him in the balls? Like, where are you getting that from? You're like 5 years old. Like, you know, where did this come from? And then the rest of the story is when he's a teenager, we had gotten back from England, and we're driving through the North Cascade Mountains on Highway 20, which goes through Index, Washington. For all of you Harry and the Henderson fans,
Okay.
that's where they filmed Harry and the Hendersons, you know, the Sasquatch movie. Mm-hmm. And we were driving through there, and I said, hey, the four of us in the car, and I said, if we were to run into Bigfoot right now, what would you do? And my wife, and I said, I'll go first. I'd floor it and run him over. And my wife says, oh, I'd invite him to dinner. My son Sam says, I'd shake his hand. And Jack said, I'd kick him in the balls.
The kid's consistent, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I like consistency.
Yeah.
Perfect ending. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.